Hello and welcome to the Graveyard Media Podcast, episode 58 for the week of September 17th, 2018. I'm your host, Saine Grey. With me is Dalsson.
It's me, and Eddie. He's
and
new.
Thel.
I don't know about this new Eddie. He's got wing bones. I think he might be some kind of bat.
I don't think he's a
Some sort
bat.
of super bat.
No, he's not a bat. He's a bird.
He's got like 15 wing bones.
He's just been genetically engineered
You know, I
to
saw
have bones.
some of those in the store I went to yesterday. They have they have the skeleton spiders and the skeleton scorpions, which are weird as fuck. But
Hang on, wait, what? Why?
anatomically, of course.
Yeah.
The one thing that I saw that was really the weird one was there was an anatomic, it was a skeleton pug that had ear bones.
Oh yeah, we have those
like-
too.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, people are stupid with their fake skeletons sometimes.
Yeah.
They're supposed to look like spooky Halloween decoration skeletons. They're not supposed to be anatomical. studies.
Skeletons are already spooky. You don't have to be stupid.
Well, I mean,
True.
you ain't gonna get a spider skeleton, but because that's
could
on the
just-
outside.
Yeah, it could just be a
Could
regular
just- it could
spider.
just
I
be a
don't see why.
spider. I mean, and also, what is so wrong about the classic normal skeleton we got? America has lost its way in its love for skeletons. And I think that we need to continue loving skeletons as much as
Hate
we love
skeletons.
Wow. I don't know why you would say that, or why anyone would say that, actually.
They're scary.
Go on. Oh, okay. I mean, they are scary. All right, I will give you. Skeletons are spooky.
I have been fighting for 25
Someone's
years to
echoing.
keep the skeleton sealed inside of me.
Thel, I think you might be echoing.
Well,
Weird.
I don't
How?
hear it.
I don't know. Anyway, so
Sure.
you
Dalsson,
look
are your
into
ears
that.
turned on?
No, they're not.
Okay.
They're out of battery.
All right. Weird.
So yeah, we're gonna talk about video games and movies we've checked out this week. Then after our break, we'll have gaming and movie news.
Excellent. Sounds good.
Okey-dokey. That's a little bit
So,
low.
Thel, what have you played and or watched this week that isn't the one that we're all going to talk about?
Oh yeah, right. Hold on a second. I'm still fucking with this. All right. Yeah, all right. Let's talk about. I saw 2 movies this week. Not including BoJack, which isn't a movie. It's a television show. So the first movie I saw was The 400 Blows, a movie I haven't seen. It's one of these seminal films of the French New Wave movement, and probably the most highly regarded one. It's one that I've had on my watch list for 20 billion years, and then finally got around to.
What is it?
Okay, so it is a movie about a delinquent kid that sort of goes through why he's a delinquent kid, right?
Mhm.
One of the big reasons is, of course, his parents. And this is one of the things that was really surprising to me. This movie was made in 1959, so this is sort of a big step forward for filmmaking. They were both horrible people. Both of his parents were horrible people. This entire subject matter was a little bit risque for Hollywood. But we're going to talk about BoJack in a minute. So the thing that surprises me was they were both horrible people, but compared to BoJack in the earlier seasons, his parents are awful in the time that he was growing up, and that's all they are. They're bastards to him and bastards to each other, and that's about it. In this movie, there were a lot of rays of light with the parents. There are points in time where you think the parents may have reformed or were just having bad days, and then they turn right back around to being fucking horrible people.
Right.
And this movie shows parental abuse in a very forward and real manner. That's excuse me. I have a frog in my throat. Yeah, it's a movie about the director's life as a child, so it really, really obviously can go in this very, very real manner. So yeah. And yeah, for 1959, it was kind of a huge deal. That was the thing about the French New Wave movement, is that they wanted to tackle more
They were
close
kind
to
of a big
home
deal.
issues. They felt
Right.
like the regular films were a little bit they weren't really speaking to the people.
Right.
They were
all
like
about.
Except for the people
Random
who
stuff.
used films as escapism.
Oh yeah,
To
yeah,
not
pretty
talk
much.
about these kinds of things.
Exactly, and that was one of the things that this film goes into, like because again, it's part like basically the director's life. The kid spends a lot of time in the movie theater, and like he uses film as a way to escape all of this stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, like it doesn't follow just like the parental abuse, but like the general abuse towards children that was sort of going on at that time. You know, like the parental abuse keeps him from actually does do something good. The teacher thinks that he plagiarized, and then
Oops,
you
I
know,
muted the wrong one.
and then he like runs the hell away because of the fact that like he's afraid that his parents are going to what was it? He's afraid that his parents are going to punish him for the fact that the teacher thought he was plagiarizing. And there's a wonderful line that sums up the whole movie. It's just like, I don't lie all the time, but even when I tell the truth, they think I'm lying. So I find it's easier just to lie.
While you were
Okay.
talking, I accidentally muted you when I coughed, not myself.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Because I'm an idiot. I'm a little sick, so I'm like not 100% here right now, but you know.
Right, understandable.
Yeah, that's understandable. I know how that is. But yeah, that's about all I have for the 400 blows. So
All right. That was more like 6 or 7 blows, actually, so.
yeah. Oh right.
You want
The
me
reason
to-
the movie is.
You want me to talk about Spider-Man and then we can come back to you, or you want to go into yours next?
Go
Why
ahead.
don't we
and
try
talk
breaking it
about
up?
Spider-Man.
Talk about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Okay. Oops. Spider-Man. So I picked up the new Spider-Man. This is basically the reason I got a PS4, to be honest.
Yeah.
Man, that game is good. Like, okay, let's get that meme out of the way first. It really makes you feel like Spider-Man.
Okay.
Uh,
But isn't that what a video game is supposed to do?
well, yeah, and it does do that. It does a good job of doing that, but
I think the
feel
meme
like
is more directed at people who are actively writing articles and doing bad
Yeah, well-
writing.
well, I don't know. I don't think it's even just bad writing. It's that literally everybody who's talked about this game has said that. Like,
Oh
Fair
yeah.
enough.
even more than like when the Batman games came out, and they're like,
Mhm.
Yeah, the Arkham
Batman
games.
games make you feel about, or the Arkham games.
They make
really
you
make
feel
you
about
feel
Batman.
like Batman. You're all sneaky and you like beat people up. I don't know, but
Anybody could be sneaky and beat people up.
so
Yeah, that's
Assassin's
Hey.
Creed really makes you feel like Batman.
so
Man,
I've
I gotta say, I've been playing Deus Ex Human Revolution. Really makes you feel like fucking JC
Batman.
Denton when you're playing a new character. You feel like JC Denton when you're playing Adam Jensen. Really great.
I'm pretty sure it didn't for me, but okay. I think J.C. Denton and Adam Jensen were
They were
quite
pretty
different,
different.
but you know. So yeah, Spider-Man. They really did nail the web swinging in the game, which is like, they even knew themselves. Everybody kind of knew that if you were going to make another Spider-Man game and it was like a big Spider-Man
Yeah.
game, it had to kind of nail that. There have been a ton of other Spider-Man games that have come out, but a lot of them have been kind of lazy on that regard since Spider-Man 2,
Mhm.
like on the PS2.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Moon swinging. You want to swing around Central Park? Fuck it, go over the trees. Who cares?
and it's true that it's not like 100% accurate. You can tell there are places where it doesn't, where it breaks down, especially
Right.
when you hang on to one point for too long. It starts to get weird the longer you hold on, especially if you're
Right.
changing directions a lot, because then
see.
you kind of just hover and kind of go in weird directions.
Yeah.
But the only
They probably
time
had to do that to make it like, because if they had it totally realistic, then it would feel like that fucking Attack on Titan game that's just shitty to even play. Because
I heard
using
that
the
game-
aerial maneuver
I heard that
gear is
game
a
was okay.
nightmare. Oh, not the big release one. The one that some
The
indie guy,
Unity one,
the,
yeah.
the Unity one that some indie guy developed
oh, I don't know.
when it came out. Yeah.
But
I
whatever the
remember
case,
that
well,
one.
I don't know. they made some sacrifices in realism for funness, I guess. Like, because if you played the original Spider-Man 2, there were points where, like, you would just totally lose all momentum and stop and, like, be, like, hanging, like, just straight down from a thing. And they don't let you just hang from a thing with the web swinging button. You can hang from things, like, if you do the web hang thing, but actual, like, during the swinging part, you can't just hang there. You're always, like, moving a little bit.
Right.
And that's just to keep you from, like, stopping.
Right.
And the traversal is, like, surprisingly deep. Initially when you start, it's like, okay, you can swing, and then you do this web zip thing where you kind of pull yourself to something, or pull yourself kind of forward. As you go on, you can even unlock things that increase your movement abilities. And there's things that weren't in previous Spider-Man games, to my knowledge. Like, when you're swinging, if you kind of move close to a building, you'll start to wall run on them.
Oh, yeah,
and then you can do things like, you can hold circle while approaching a corner to swing around the corner.
Ooh,
and continue your wall run. Come on, Tybalt, move. And then you get this, or I think you have this move from the beginning, but you can, like, upgrade it later. But there's actually two kind of web zippings. There's one where you pull yourself along, and there's one where you pull yourself to a specific point and kind of stop there. Later on, you get a thing that makes it so that if you time it and push the jump button right when you hit the thing, you'll catapult yourself forward.
Ooh.
So eventually you get to the point where you're pulling yourself to a specific point, then pulling yourself with a web zip, running against the wall, jumping, swinging for a little bit, and it's just it's to the point where it's hard for me to stop playing, because what I'll do is, okay, I have to go to bed soon, so I'm not going to start a main mission, and then I spend another half an hour just swinging around because I don't know. The game does have fast travel in it, but I've only used it once when it forced me to. So
why would they put fast travel in a game like that?
Well, because there's always situations.
Such an important...
There's always situations where you might want to just be on the other side of the city, like if you're trying to get a specific thing, or trying to find a specific thing in a specific part of the city. Like there's reasons why. I just have never used it. I think that's probably true for most people. They probably haven't used it, but it's in there if you want it, you know?
Right.
The fast travel, like, animation, though, is Spider-Man just sitting on the subway in his costume. And there's, like, little mini stories, too, where it'll show him just talking to someone else in a Spider-Man costume on the train. He'll be sitting there texting while everyone around him just don't even notice him.
See, while you were describing the fact that it had fast travel, like before you said the subway thing, I pictured in my head, like, Spider-Man, like Peter Parker in the Spider-Man outfit, except without his head, just, like, stuck in traffic in his car or something, which I'm pretty sure I've never seen Peter Parker drive in any Spider-Man media, but...
Spider-Man doesn't have a driver's license, and he even comments on that in this video game.
Oh, good.
But he lives in New York, so it kind of makes sense anyway.
Yeah, who needs a driver's license in New York?
No one drives in New York, there's too much traffic.
Exactly.
Unless you're a cab driver, in which case you very much should have your driver's license.
Yeah.
But you probably don't need it. Nobody's gonna check. The cops aren't gonna be able to catch you in the traffic.
One day you get a fake driver's license to get beer as a teenager. Next thing you know, you've been driving for 20 years in a cab with a fake driver's license. You probably could get your regular driver's license, but well, you
don't want to go to the DMV. You're already stuck in traffic most of the time.
Oh no! Not again, you bastard! Back to where you belong.
Goddamn ghosts. They're getting more active as it comes up to Halloween.
Yeah, you're right. This house is pretty haunted. But that's okay.
while Thel works on that.
Yeah.
One of the things I was worried about going into this game was the combat system a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because from the looks of it, it looks very much like a Batman clone or an Assassin's Creed clone.
Right.
It feels... Oh my god, the dogs are barking in the background. They're being really annoying.
Oh, man.
Move.
Yeah.
If you just talk over them, you
Yeah.
can't really hear it.
So the one thing I was worried about it being too similar to either of those games. Of the two of them, despite its looks, it's probably more similar to Assassin's Creed than Batman.
Right.
I would hope it would be.
And it's mostly because they don't lock you into fighting mode the same way that almost every game like this does. The only other one, I think, actually, it's probably closest to Shadow of Mordor.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, because it doesn't need to lock you into combat. Part of the reason why it makes sense to do that in Batman is because when he's like in fighting mode, he has to be paying attention to like all the people around him. Right. Spider-Man's a little bit different because you don't need to slowly walk up to someone or like you don't need to super be sticky on people to punch them, because one thing that Spider-Man has that basically none of these other characters have is he can just fucking use a web and go over to him like immediately. Basically everyone else has to like run up to someone or slowly walk towards something or whatever, but Spider-Man can just decide at any point to go to any enemy near him.
Right.
So, and it doesn't fall into the Assassin's Creed trap of making counter be the most effective button in the game.
Right. Even though I feel like for Spider-Man more so than any other character that would make a lot of sense.
I don't know, because I think that where you fall into a trap if you make an actual counter. What Spider-Man does instead is it has a dodge button.
Okay.
And if like after you get an upgrade, when you time the dodge, it'll stun the enemy who attacked you. So what you can do is, if you dodge them at the perfect time, like a perfect dodge, it'll like shoot web in their face, and then they're just stuck there until you can either decide to go over and fight him, or fight any of the other people around you, or whatever, or just like fucking leave. Like at any point you can just leave if you want. You know, obviously depending on what you're doing, like if it's a story mission or if it's like one of the base missions or something, you don't want to leave, but you could. Yeah. Well, not a story mission, like a lot of times you couldn't, but so it like you have this dodge thing, so it kind of is very contextual in a really smart way, because if you dodge away from them, you'll just like jump backwards, right? If they're like standing in front of you, like kind of face to face, you'll jump over behind them. Or if they're like kind of a heavier enemy, you'll just slide right between their legs and go behind them. And then there's kind of like Batman, they do have like a number of different kinds of enemies. Like they have the big brute guys, they have like dudes with shields, they have dudes with swords, they have dudes with whips. They have dudes with guns, both handguns and rifles. And over time you're given more and more tools to deal with people, and you know, more flexibility in terms of what different moves you can use, just like Batman, just like Batman, you have gadgets, which are like different web things that you can use to
I have a quick question about that.
Sure.
Do you have a limited amount of web that you can use, or
so this is how it works. For your normal webbing, you have a bar that over time, like you can use all your bar, and then you have to wait for it to refill over time.
Okay.
That's like a resource that's time limited but not actually limited.
Right.
All of your other gadgets have a number of uses. So like one of them is a web bomb, and like I think by default you get to, or impact webbing is another one, and at the beginning when you first get it, you only have 2 of them, but when you shoot it at someone, it like kind of instantly explodes them into being trapped rather than you having to build up webbing on them.
Right. So how do you get those gadgets back?
So I think that they probably refill at set intervals, but you can get a trait pretty early on. Or no, actually it's not a trait, it's a suit power, or like a suit edition thing, customization thing, which lets you restore those by beating up enemies. So like every time you defeat an enemy, you get a chance to drop one of those random gadgets.
Okay, cool.
And I've used that basically since I got it because it's pretty useful. But actually, I've come to the point where I almost barely use any of the gadgets. I only mainly use normal webbing.
Yeah, that's how it usually goes in those kinds of games.
Because the problem is, it's not intuitive enough to switch, like, gadgets for me.
Right.
Because the way that it works is, you pull up a radial wheel to change to gadgets, which in itself is fine. But the problem is, because it is sort of like in the same feel as the like Mordor combat or the Batman combat, you feel like you're in kind of the flow of combat, and it really takes you out of it to ever pause and switch gadgets.
Right.
If you leave it on a gadget, what'll happen is you'll use your gadget when you totally don't mean to, because you totally meant to just shoot a normal web. Because it's the same button as your normal web. It replaces your normal web for a while. So, like, you'll totally mean to use your normal web, and it'll be like, oh shit, I just shot Sonic at nobody because nobody's standing immediately next to me. Stuff like that.
Yeah, that sucks.
So, you know, there are, like, hang-ups for that. And I wish there was, like, an easier way to swap between those quickly without having to think about it. But they used a lot of the buttons. Like, there's not many buttons left.
I see. So it's kind of a consequence of that.
And like, it's not sticky the same way even Mordor is. Like, when you're in a fight, your character's like looking at an enemy, right? And you can just hit sprint and leave that any time. But while you're fighting, you're still like fighting the people around you. This game doesn't even do that. Like, there's no real difference between fighting someone and just standing there. The only difference is, like, your abilities will actually do things. Like, if you just hit triangle just normally, like, I honestly don't even know what triangle does, just like normally. But if you hit triangle near enemies, even if you don't actually see the enemy on screen, it'll automatically like target the nearest enemy and take you to them. If there are enemies on screen, it will highlight one of them, and then you can kind of maneuver which one you're trying to hit with your look camera. The only problem is when there's like a ton of people and you're trying to get to someone who's standing behind like 4 other dudes, then it's hard to like instantly target that dude. But that's just, I mean, that's a you problem, not a game problem, I think.
Right, exactly.
So I really like, it's kind of funny, like in the game with sticky webbing, it's the least sticky Arkham combat game I've ever seen.
Yeah. Okay, so now speaking of Arkham Combat, one of the things that's always disappointed me in pretty much every single one of those games is the boss fights. I feel like they are all bad, and they all just wind up becoming normal enemies later. How do you feel about the boss fights in this one?
So, the only time that happens is the one enemy that kind of makes sense that would happen, which is Kingpin.
Okay.
So you fight Kingpin right at the beginning, and he's a brute, like basically a brute character. The only thing, well, except he's just a better version of the brutes, and like later on you fight brute dudes, but they're not even as hard as Kingpin was. So the closest time that happens is Kingpin. The rest of the times, like, I don't. So I'm in the last the last section of the game probably,
Mhm.
If you've seen the E3, not the original E3 trailer, but the second one where it shows you on the raft doing like chasing Electro and stuff. After that point in the game, there are suddenly supervillains all over the place, and you have to like fight them directly.
Understandable.
So I haven't gone through a lot of the boss fights, first of all, just because there are more, and I know that I haven't fought them yet. So, Rhino was really... I don't even remember fighting Rhino, because I can tell you
how you fought Rhino.
I don't think you even fought Rhino directly.
Oh, okay.
I think you fought that, like, because it was part of this other mission where they basically there were 4 villains, or no, there were 2 villains kind of in random places, and you had to fight one and then the other. The thing with the Rhino one though was Rhino being there was kind of the least of your problem, because you had to defeat like 6 barricades where enemy dudes were fighting the police. So you had to go fight them, not Rhino. So
I see.
After you defeated all those enemies, Rhino just left. There's probably going to be another Rhino fight where you actually fight Rhino, but I've not yet actually fought Rhino.
See, it kind of makes sense to just not have you fight Rhino, just have you kind of like proxy battle around Rhino, because let's be real, the way that the Rhino fight is going to go is Rhino is like, I'm going to get you, Spider-Man, and then he's going to charge at you, and Spider-Man's going to dodge out of the way, and then he'll get stunned, you'll beat him up, and then it'll happen 3 more times.
Honestly,
That's how Rhino is in every single video game.
Honestly, I don't think they would do that, just based on everyone else I've fought.
Rhino in every single video game, and also every video game that doesn't have Rhino in it. Any character that has ever been named Rhino in a video game screams, I'm gonna get you, Spider-Man.
I think that
I'm Link.
I think this game was very careful not to fall into a lot of the traps of other games like it. Right. So for instance, you fight Shocker kind of maybe a third of the way into the game, pretty early, like not too long after you fight Kingpin, really.
Okay.
And most of the supervillains in this game, it's more about the environment you're fighting in than the actual enemy, like most of the time. With
Which
Shocker,
is a pretty Spider-Man thing.
Well, yeah, and that's how it really should be, because these supervillains, they're not powerful because they have strong attacks. They're powerful because they fuck everything up around them. Shocker, when you're fighting him, you couldn't directly attack him because he had like an energy field, essentially. So you had to basically dodge his attacks until he got tired, and then you would attack him while he got tired. If the game has any like enemy trope, it's kind of that. You have to wait until they get tired.
Right. So wait for vulnerability moments.
Right.
But that's just like a basic... I wouldn't even say that's a trope. That's just kind of like a general game design theme.
Yeah. But it uses it a lot, though, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Not... Like, it's not so bad that it's really noticeable, but it has happened several times.
Right.
But, you know, at the same time, like... the first time you fight Electro, you're not actually fighting Electro directly. What you're doing is he has all these transformers all over the place, like electric transformers, and it's causing like shafts of lightning to be all over the fucking place.
Ooh.
And he's attacking a police station, so you need to like take out the transformers, protect the police, and also like beat up other guys who are around the transformers too a little bit. And then you have to kind of destroy the transformers by shooting webbing at them. So like you're swinging through like 4 or 5 buildings trying to kill these transformers while not getting hit by electricity. So you don't actually like directly fight him.
Right.
Later on, you fight him and Vulture at the same time, and that's when you're more directly fighting him. And what you're kind of doing is you're dodging his attacks and then shooting him with webbing to make him vulnerable. Because he can't really, like, he has an energy, like a lightning field around him normally, but if you web him up, then he can't project that.
Generate that,
So then you can go and beat him up a little bit. Vulture, it wouldn't let you directly attack him unless you dodged one of his attacks first. So it's stuff like that. It's like they all have a thing that makes them vulnerable.
You have to like, so it's not just dodge until a vulnerability window necessarily. It's just you have to create the vulnerability window.
Right.
So like
not always
like,
though. Sometimes it is just waiting for them to tire themselves out, but a lot of times it is. Like,
so almost more like Legend of Zelda kind of puzzle bosses.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best comparison. It's more like that than anything else. Except the game is very mechanics heavy still. So you're still doing Spider-Man stuff the whole time. Like it's not like Zelda where you did things that were not always like what you would do to fight everything else. In Spider-Man, you're basically fighting and playing the same way you would do anything. It's just you have to do certain things. You have to
also do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're like swinging around while fighting someone, or waiting for specific opportunities, stuff like that. Another thing that the game does well is it really has a good job of balancing Peter Parker and Spider-Man. They have kind of, and actually other people have kind of complained about this, I've seen. There are times where you're playing as Peter Parker, not Spider-Man, and it's like you're just a dude walking around. You're not usually outside the city. Usually it's in specific places, like for story reasons, but the characterization of Peter Parker is like so good in it that you don't really, I don't know, it doesn't really feel annoying to do it for me anyway, because it's fitting enough with the story and interesting enough that it doesn't, I don't know, it's just you're doing things, right? If it overstayed its welcome,
Spider-Man, so like
you have to play as Peter Parker, so sometimes. So if it overstayed its welcome and happened all the fucking time, then maybe I would be more annoyed about it. But it's like once every 10 hours of gameplay, 5-10 hours of gameplay, so it's not that bad. There's also sequences where you play as other characters. One of them being like Mary Jane, and it's kind of this is, I can understand it being more annoying. There are sequences where you play as Mary Jane and this other character where you have to, it's like a stealth mission with an instant fail condition. So you're kind of running through like camps, avoiding soldiers or enemies or whatever the case may be. And like the first mission, all you're doing is waiting for them to like not look, and then you walk by. The second time they do it, they give you like this lure thing so you can throw it and kind of distract them and go by. And then the third one is actually the most interesting one. The third Mary Jane one. Because of how the sequence played out, you start the part that like mission as Mary Jane. Then Spider-Man shows up afterwards, and then you're basically running around directing Spider-Man to take people out for you.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's kind of like playing that from Mary Jane's perspective, being like, okay, I managed to get this person to walk away from the group, and now this person is safe for you to take out without anybody looking. So she's like being the distraction kind of, and then also directing him to take people out. So it's that's actually the coolest part of the Mary Jane arc so far. I'm not finished with the game, but I think I'm getting close to the end.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, because it's like those are the kinds of missions that you would have in other games where like you're playing as Spider-Man and the NPC is like, all right, I'm here, go take him out so that I can move on.
Right.
Or whatever.
There are some things where I'm like, I wonder if they just did this because Batman did this. It doesn't happen a lot, but there are definitely like points in time where it's like, Do you
have an example?
Yeah, the biggest example is there is a point in time where your character is hallucinating. And it's like, and it's like sort of a facing your fears kind of scenario, and it's like, did they do this just because of the Scarecrow missions in Batman, or is this like something that they thought of organically? And it's like, I don't know.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, they were really cool parts, and they were more fun. Like, the problem with Batman was, if they didn't do it for one long section every Batman game, it probably wouldn't have been as annoying. But by the third Batman game, it's like, okay, I get it, Scarecrow.
Yeah.
I could have swore they did like 3 of them for the first Batman game.
They do it 3 separate times in the same game. By the last time, it's like annoying, but I don't know. I don't think it was too bad in the first Arkham game.
The first time, it's like scared people because it tried to act like your console was crashing.
Yeah, it did unexpected things, which made it interesting the first time. The second time, it was like, okay, they're kind of playing up on this again. Except the scenes were longer, and a lot of them had instant fail conditions, which made them annoying, right?
Yeah.
By the third game, it's like, come on. This one, at the very least, during the hallucination sequence, it didn't have, or it had some like instant fail conditions, but they weren't as bad because they felt like your fault still.
Right.
Where it's like, and it wasn't happening constantly, because part of the problem with, like, especially when you're playing Mary Jane, if you're not good at that stuff, you can do things like, the enemy turns right when you're walking and then sees you and then you're caught.
Right.
So, like, if you're not really paying attention to the enemies, then it'll be a pain in the ass, right?
Right.
But in the hallucination sequences, and some of them don't even have combat. Some of the hallucination sequences don't have combat, so it's just you going somewhere. But some of them do. Well, some of them have combat, and some of them have like web swinging through dangerous area. Like, the area is a more dangerous version of New York, where if you fall off the building, you die, essentially.
I see. So the floor is lava.
Yeah, it's basically the floor is lava scenario. So if you fuck up, it feels more like it was your fault, because you should, at this point in the game, be good enough not to fall off the building.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and there's still points where it could happen, but it's like,
instead of you have to be swinging around and there's a giant scarecrow scanning the area, and then he turns his head right at the last moment and catches you in the corner of his vision.
The problem with those stealth sequences, especially at the very beginning with Mary Jane, is at the very beginning you have no tools to influence the environment other than, like, you can walk up and push something over and make a distraction and then run by. So it was like, there were points in time where it very much felt like you were just waiting for enemies to do things so you could go. And that's always annoying. By the second one, you get those lures, so you can, even when there's no things to push over, you have more ability to, like, distract and go, right?
Right.
By the third time, you're actually playing. You know what I mean? Like, you're doing something.
Yeah.
So, like, over time, they make that better. The problem is they also have another character, which are sprinkled in there too, who also does the same thing as Mary Jane. So, and that character has their own way of influencing the environment by the second time you play him, but it is still, again, like, I think in total it makes 5 times I've done it, been other characters, which it's fine, I don't mind it, but 2 of those I basically had to just wait for people to not be looking, which is always
Okay.
Yeah, and the story is really good too. I didn't want to, like, I don't want to really give a lot of spoilers or harp too much on it, but, like, it's a very well written Spider-Man game.
Okay.
Pretty much the best written Spider-Man game I've ever played.
So I have a question about the story.
Sure.
We know from the first E3 trailer that Miles Morales is in the game.
Yes.
Does he play a big role in the game, or was that just kind of like a, hey, look who's here?
He's definitely a reoccurring character. He doesn't play a huge role, but the character does interact with Peter Parker before the halfway point of the game.
Okay.
And you
like
have
around.
you have reason to know him. It's not just like, oh, suddenly this kid is here. Yeah. It's like they have a good established explained reason why Peter Parker and Miles would know each other.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think I don't know, it doesn't feel contrived. it feels like this is a natural progression. This is a thing that makes sense. Like,
So
I
it
understand
doesn't
this.
feel like it's just like a cameo that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and actually, the game has been super good about that, like throughout the thing, and to the extent where, if you didn't know, like that much about Spider-Man, there are so many things that would go over your head. It's not even funny.
Okay.
At the beginning of the game, one of you're like, the dude you're working for, you're essentially, you're basically working as a scientist for Dr. Otto Octavius. And if you didn't know anything about Spider-Man, you're like working for Dr. Ock for like most of Dr. Octopus for like most of the game.
Didn't they do that in one of the other Spider-Man games where you were just like working for Doc Ock?
They did it in Spider-Man 2 because the movie did it that way too, kind of.
Yeah.
And actually, what's kind of weird about this is they did so in the comics. I don't actually remember if Spider-Man works for Dr. Dr. Octavius like directly. He might have. I'm not entirely sure.
Well, he's a like he's a college student, so it would make sense.
Yeah, no, but it's not
like...
usually a Dr. Octavius. It's usually the Lizard who you're working for, Dr. Connors. He's a geneticist who you work for. So they kind of replace that with Dr. Octavius, which is fine because I think that they sort of ruined the Lizard in Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man, the reboot with Andrew Garfield. I think that really soured people to the Lizard because I don't know, like the thing with the Lizard is he was sort of a really early villain for Peter Parker, like an early super villain for Peter Parker.
Right.
So I think he was like the third one. I think it was like Vulture, Electro, and then Lizard.
Right.
So like,
and Lizard just wasn't as compelling of a character in The Amazing Spider-Man.
I think, I don't know. I think the Lizard is an interesting character, but there's only so much you can do with him because his power set isn't crazy.
Right, yeah, but he's got kind of like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing going on normally, right? Like not necessarily switching back and forth, but he's conflicted over his.
No, it actually is sort of. Problem with so the Amazing Spider-Man did change it. He is actually more Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde than even that movie went into. Like, he doesn't remember when he's the Lizard a lot of the time. Like, it's straight up a separate personality. Like, so that one kind of just blended their personalities, but in reality, it is like a literal Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde scenario where he blacks out and then is the Lizard for a while and then wakes up. Like,
right. So that makes it more difficult for Spider-Man if he knows who the Lizard is too, because
he doesn't know who the Lizard is initially. For a
while.
Where it's like when I don't know. So and there's other stuff like in the game there's Mayor Osborn, who obviously the Green Goblin. And it looks like it took a lot of good cues from the movies. Like the original Raimi trilogy. Well, the first two Raimi movies anyway. Like, because it worked in that Dr. Octavius relationship, which has always been an interesting relationship. Because even if Peter Parker, I don't remember or not whether he works with him directly, Dr. Octavius has always respected Peter Parker as a scientist.
Right.
He actually does know of Peter Parker. Even if he didn't initially realize that he was Spider-Man or whatever, he always knew about him. So, like...
Because Peter Parker is fucking a genius.
Yeah. So, I don't know. And then there's other things, like there's Avengers Tower in it. One of the collectibles is you have to take like pictures of landmarks. And there's landmarks both of normal New York and of Marvel New York. So there's one of the landmarks you take a picture of is Alias Investigations.
Okay.
One of the landmarks is obviously Avengers Tower. There's one where it's like
hang on, is it Avengers Tower at this point or is it Stark Tower?
It's Avengers Tower.
Okay.
And actually, they mentioned the Avengers and stuff, so the Avengers are definitely like in universe there. And there's one part where you take a picture of sort of a nondescript building that looks kind of like an old church, and he's like, in like almost a corny way, he's like, "Man, that building always gave me a strange feeling." So, because it was obviously Doctor Strange's like house or whatever. So, there's a lot of good cameos in there. The last thing I want to touch on is the kind of collectible sort of thing that they do.
Okay.
So, first of all, there's towers in the game, so it's like it does just immediately pull that off of Assassin's Creed. So there are towers. Okay. Although like Zelda did that too, I guess, right?
Yeah.
One thing I'm like convinced this is something they took from Zelda though. So you don't, when you're swinging around, you don't have all of these icons on the screen. You have to actually like click the right joystick in to do a scan, and then it shows you everything around. And then each different like thing has a color associated with it, and it shoots like a laser beam into the sky. So
I think that was in Shadow of Mordor as well.
I don't remember. I don't feel like it was in Mordor, but it might have been in the second one.
Shadow of War, yeah.
Yeah,
maybe.
but because I never played Shadow of War, but so like at any point you can click it in, and then you can see all these rays of light, and then if you're looking for something specific, you can sort of go towards the ray. Right. Kind of like in Zelda when you were looking through the scope or whatever, you could mark points of interest and stuff. Mm-hmm. It automatically marks the points of interest for you, but it doesn't, because you have to actively engage with it. It doesn't like clutter you up, and it doesn't.
You don't just get a million waypoints.
Yeah, and nothing's on your mini map like ever, except for like enemy stuff. They don't show icons and shit on your mini map. So unless you're like scanning for it and looking for it, it doesn't bother you, which is like the big thing that Assassin's Creed really needs to learn. For instance, like there's so much shit on your map at all times, it's like annoying. Right. Whereas Spider-Man really is good about dodging that.
Good. And
then the last thing is like, and even the towers, like they're not like super annoying things you have to like crawl up to get to. It's like you go to this position and then you activate it. That's basically it.
Right.
And that I did that real quick just because I wanted to swing around the city.
Right.
So I don't know.
Okay, neat. So I do have one question though.
Yeah.
This is just a question that I've been holding because I didn't find a good place to insert it. Does the symbiote thing come up a whole lot, or is it more just about him fighting like supervillains and shit?
If it does, it hasn't yet.
Carnage. Oh,
if it does, it hasn't yet. So
I'm sure there's a black suit unlockable costume or something, but
I have 2/3 of them available, and I've not seen a black suit costume yet. There's like 20 suits in the game or something though.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of variety. From comics and stuff too. Like
oh, nifty.
So they have like some of the big ones that are kind of cool. They have the Iron Spider suit. And each suit has a power associated with it too.
Right.
So and then you can kind of mix and match. Like you have to unlock the suit to unlock the power, but once you have that unlocked, you can put on your original suit and then you still use that power.
Okay, cool.
Like one of the powers is the Iron Spider suit, which is like actually they had a version of it in the Avengers movie.
It's similar to
Infinity War. Where
Infinity War.
Yeah, you have like the big Dr. Octopus arms coming out of you.
Yeah.
And then you can fight people with the Dr. Octopus arms. So
cool.
So yeah, they actually have a really good variety of different suits.
Nice.
A lot from comics. There's some from other media. Like one of the ones that you get really early on is you can wear the one from Infinity, like, or the one from the Spider-Man Homecoming. You can wear that version of his suit. So
nice.
Yeah, so I don't know. I really love the game.
Like
it's really good.
What everybody wants out of Spider-Man game.
Yeah, it's so great. And it's breaking records, which is funny because God of War broke a bunch of records when it came out, and this is breaking all of God of War's records like already.
Wow.
So Which
Good year
is
for
in a
video
way
games.
kind of not super surprising because an Insomniac game made or a Spider-Man game made by Insomniac seems like it would do really well.
Yeah, really.
So and it's good. So it's
yeah,
this might be my favorite game so far this year.
nice.
But I might have to like look at what games I've played this year. So I don't know.
All 7 of them.
I've played more than that. Come on.
I don't know if I have.
Yeah. So
wow.
that's Spider-Man. I talked about that for a long time.
Yeah, but that's good.
So, do you want to? Why don't we, instead of doing BoJack now, why don't we save it for the end? Oh, you know what? I'm putting timestamps on anyway. I guess you could just skip. Let's just do spoilers, and if you want to skip BoJack, just skip in the timestamps, right?
Yeah.
And then if
okay.
you're watching this live, sorry, wait for this text at the bottom to go away. I'm gonna change it to BoJack.
We're doing BoJack now. I have another movie.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
movie.
sure. Let's talk about your other movie.
Yeah, let's do Thel's movie first.
Okay.
Well, keep it quick though, because.
Okay. This is the one I really wanted to talk about, though. All right. So the other movie that I have is Mandy. The movie that came out on Friday.
Is that the one with Nicolas Cage in it?
That is the one with Nicolas Cage in it.
I almost saw it.
Oh, you should have.
I almost saw it, but I was sick, so I didn't. We ended up not going to the movies. And I'm not the only one sick at my house right now, so we were all sick.
Oh no!
So it's like none of us really feel like going to the movies, so we're not gonna.
Yeah, that's understandable. Hey, there's always next week though. So this is a movie I've been super hyped for. It's the return of Panos Cosmatos, a man whose name sounds like the kind of movies that he would direct. He directed a movie called Beyond the Black Rainbow, which sort of set the stage for a lot of sci-fi movies visually. Like now, he has a very like sort of single color on black style that permeated like the really permeated into like this whole modern sci-fi thing that we have. It was you can see a little bit of him in Denis Villeneuve's films. There's a lot of him in Alex Garland's films, especially Ex Machina. Like the entire it almost seemed like when I was watching Ex Machina, I was thinking like, wow, it's like this man wanted to have the same visuals as fucking Beyond the Black Rainbow, but with a plot with a robot in it, which was really fun. And like even in the newest Star Wars movie, there's a lot of like his colors, the sort of color weight thing that he does. And you know, a lot of people also will cite Under the Skin, but Cosmatos was first, so he wins.
Right. So is Mandy, you mentioned a robot, is Mandy like
Oh no, robot was robot was for Ex Machina.
Is Ex Machina
what's
Short Circuit?
No. So what's Mandy about?
Okay. So what Mandy is about is Nicolas Cage goes Nicolas Cage's wife is like kidnapped by a bunch of people who may or may not have supernatural stuff going on with them, and he has to get revenge on them. Okay. It's a really basic plot. But not only does like this movie bring Panos Cosmatos back from the dead, because the last movie he made was like 10 years ago, also it brings Nicolas Cage back from the dead. He was perfect for this movie. Absolutely perfect. Nobody else could have done it because he is the perfect amount of absolutely fucking insane for this movie.
Okay.
Really. So yeah, the plot is like so I have the plot like down here.
I feel like, you know, Upgrade. But we were talking about this when we were doing Upgrade, or talking about Upgrade too. It's like you can have a sort of good, or like just a basic plot if everything around it is good.
Oh yeah, and this is definitely one of them. But yeah, one of the things about the plot is that they like the bad guys may or may not just be on drugs, which was one of the things that sort of made this movie stand out from Beyond the Black Rainbow, his previous movie. Is that there was a whole ass scene where a man had expository dialogue, which came out of fucking left field. In his last movie, very, very little was explained. It was one of those, it was very much up to your interpretation. But yeah, the big thing about this movie is that this is the most beautiful movie this year. Like, this movie fought against Annihilation, Isle of Dogs, Upgrade, Mission Impossible, and First Reformed, and it came out heads above the rest. It is fucking gorgeous. Did it fall again?
Yeah. It was better looking than Isle of Dogs.
Yeah, definitely. Panos Cosmatos's style like shines because he goes like a step beyond everyone else. Like comparing it to him, everyone else sort of feels like they're being restrained, or he just goes all out. He goes as hard as he can.
I don't know if I call Isle of Dogs restrained, but okay. Yeah, I don't know. I might have to check this one out because it looks really good.
Oh yeah, it's incredible.
Did you see it in theaters?
I did not. I watched it streaming.
Okay.
It was but yeah, another thing was it was a very introspective movie, which is what I was expecting based on Beyond the Black Rainbow. The first hour and 15 minutes of this 2-hour movie is the build up to the revenge. And then like when you're an hour and 15 minutes in, the title card comes up, which is
that's funny. I love when movies do that because that's like the dumbest shit. You can go a little bit longer on this. We can just cut some of the news instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
there's like a lot of the news is like tiny and we don't even need to.
Right.
But yeah. It takes a lot of time to build up to its climax, and like the build up to its climax is very, very much like bathes you in its atmosphere and its visuals and stuff. But then when it gets to the climax, holy shit, the last 45 minutes is goddamn insane. It is wonderful. It goes exactly as ham and crazy as you would hope it does.
Good.
So yeah, it's and then like, you know, when you get out of this movie, it's like the insanity that the last 45 minutes is like driven into you. It's like when the movie is over, I watched it streaming, so I like turn it off, and it's like you're assaulted by the fact that like you exist in the real world still. It's like waking up from a crazy dream that you just forget about everything else that existed, and it really puts you in the movie. It's suffocating. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Mandy is great. I fucking love it. Also, shout out for a last thing. Shout out to Cheddar Goblin. Kids and Goblins confirmed that he is the best. All hail Cheddar Goblin. That's all I have to say about Mandy. It's fucking great.
All right.
All right. Thel, did you talk about 2 Point Hospital last week?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to say I've also picked up 2 Point Hospital. It's fun as hell.
I did run into more of the bugs now, which is in the video.
He didn't
so
talk
really
too long about it because it was early on.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you want to talk about it a bit, you can do that while Thel fixes his background because it's really upsetting.
Sure.
It's distracting. Yeah. I'm
So
sorry.
I am not usually a huge fan of management sims like this, right? And one of the reasons is just because I'm plain bad at them. I'm just flat out bad at them. I'm bad at management sims. I can't manage area because I know this isn't how you have to do it. But in my mind, it's like, okay, I have built something here. Now that thing here is built, that location is out of bounds for the rest of eternity. My brain doesn't make me want to sell something that I've already built or move something that I've already built because I feel like, why did I waste the time building that in the first place if I'm just going to sell it later? And I know that's not how I'm supposed to do it. I just can't force myself to do it. Now, that said, 2 Point Hospital is very hard for me for this reason because I will kind of reactively build the things that I need instead of getting ahead of the curve or planning the things that I will need later. So I try to plan ahead and be like, okay, I can have this much space allocated to that and this and this and that. Whereas I know it would be much easier if I were to just be like, okay, build wherever I want, move it later. Because I'm pretty sure you can pick up entire rooms and move them, right?
Oh yeah.
So I should just do that, but it's really hard to keep track of. Now that said, I love this particular game because it does allow me to play the way that I was describing, where it's like, oh no, you have 8 people in line at your one general practitioner office, and I'm like, okay, I'll just pause the game and build 2 more.
Yeah.
And then everybody will just move over to those other 2 general practitioners. Like it doesn't require it doesn't really require me to keep up with things in real time. And I know that a lot of management sims are probably like that, where you can pause them and stop it. But
well, I would say most management sims takes time to build stuff.
Yeah.
So
and I think probably part of the problem that you're running into with having to sell things is actually part of the, because like I also don't do that. Like usually if I plan something out in the beginning, I expand like outwards in some way rather than like selling stuff in near the beginning, rather, except for like City Skylines where you kind of have to do that because that game is super heavy on like roads and stuff.
Right. But what was the problem that you were going to say?
Oh yeah, right. Sorry, I got sidetracked. The problem was that is it, like you said, was the planning thing. That's the reason you have to sell stuff is probably because you didn't put like all of the stuff that you needed at some point.
Well, I don't. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't sell things. I would rather just buy a new wing of my hospital and build more shit there, and that's what I frequently do.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like I also don't sell things either.
Oh,
but, like,
okay, cool.
But like in any management setting.
But you have to like have some foresight to say need a bathroom eventually. You know what I mean?
Like, yeah, exactly. So, but all of that being said, that was me describing that I am bad at management sims, and I generally don't like them for that reason as a whole, as a genre. Mm-hmm. But I really enjoy 2 Point Hospital. And I maybe it's just the quirkiness, maybe it's the all the radio announcers and stuff, you know, everything like that. It really gives me that feeling. Like one of the only other management sims I've ever really liked is Roller Coaster Tycoon as a series, right?
You know, it actually surprises me a little bit that you don't like that many management sims, because like with the amount of cookie clicker you've played, it feels like most of them boil down to cookie clicker. Anyway,
I mean, kind of,
so...
but those kind of cookie clicker games are just like, for me, it's just like, okay, well, I'll let it set and then just press all of the buttons when I can and then let it set again.
Yeah.
So like, I don't actually.
That's management sims though, in a nutshell. So
well, a little bit, but the thing is, like, what management sims have is like the designing part. With cookie clickers, you just like have to click on a thing and then it builds it. With management sims, it's very much about like placement and aesthetics and making sure
that's
all
it.
of
I'm
these
not
different
good.
layers.
I'm not good at the designing part, so because I can't design it in my head before I build it, so I just build it and I'm like, yeah, that's good enough. So if you like were to look at my 2 Point hospitals, there, it's like, how the fuck you like, if you were to walk into one of those hospitals with like a disease, you would like first have to navigate. You would be handed a golden thread by the receptionist, and you would have to navigate the maze of the fucking Minotaur to get to the general practitioner's office. And then he would say, "I don't know what's wrong with you. Go outside," and then you would have to follow the golden thread back to the fucking door, keep the golden thread in your hand, and go to the other wing of the hospital, navigating using only the stars.
Yeah, based on what I saw of Thel's hospital in that video he did, though, I'm not sure that
that's abnormal.
Thel was any more organized. So
fair enough.
Honestly, like, have you played like The Sims?
Yes.
Did you feel that way about building houses in The Sims?
Kind of.
Because I think with The Sims is an interesting example of a management sim, because rather than building things as you need them, you kind of have to manage your needs or whatever. Like, so you know everything you need right off the bat, and what you do instead is you slowly upgrade everything to better versions of the same thing. I am in a weird place with management sims. I like them, but it has to be a specific kind. Like, I've never played Roller Coaster Tycoon, and I don't think I ever want to. I have played a little bit of SimCity, but actively don't like it. But I think with SimCity in particular, it's just because it was like wonky. But I'm talking about like old SimCity, like SimCity 2000. And it was like one of those things where, as a little kid, I was trying to wrap my head around this video game. Not gonna happen. So I don't know. Like, I think as a genre, I probably do like management sims. But if you were to look at my Steam list, I don't play any. So I don't know.
Right.
I think out of all of us, I like management sims the best because I pick them up
because he likes to make money.
I like to make money, and that's what those games are about.
Well, I don't mind making money either, but you know.
I like watching the numbers go up.
That likes to simulate making money.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely play a few games that simulate making money.
I also like EVE Online for the same reason.
I got you into EVE Online, and you kept playing it, and I petered off so fast.
Yeah.
EVE Online is one of those things where I wonder if I would like it, because there are competing things in it that I know that I would like, and I know that I would not like. So it's like, what,
like the entire lack of gameplay.
Would I enjoy? Well, that's not necessarily the case, because I've played other games that are just spreadsheets. Literally, I've played games that are nothing but spreadsheets. So
Fair
like,
enough.
so like I have competing interests on whether or not the stuff I would like would overwhelm the stuff that I know I wouldn't like the ease of use, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And it's like, I'm almost worried that I would like EVE Online.
I mean,
I don't want to go down that hole, you know?
It is free to play, so that's the...
And one of the things that I would say is, like, right now, the thing that actually got me into it more now than I ever had been was they added a new tutorial system that was much better and
that actually teaches
you how to play
the
fucking game.
Yeah. Instead of... So the last time I played EVE Online, one of my friends was like, okay, so you should just join this, clan or whatever. I forget what they're called. Corporation. You should join this corporation. They're a newbie tutorial corporation. Here's their website. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds cool. I'll go to their website, check them out, and then ask somebody to join. And then I went to their website, and they was like, okay, so here's the thing. First, we're going to need your name. We're going to need your levels of education. We're going to need to know the last 3 jobs that you had. We need to know your nationality, name, race, gender, sexual orientation, and then if you are selected for our newbie-friendly corp, we will give you an interview. And I'm like, huh? Fuck EVE Online. I'm not playing this shit if this is how the community is.
Yeah.
And that was a newbie-friendly community. When somebody says a newbie-friendly guild, I expect, hey man, I see you're a newbie-friendly guild. I'm kind of new to the game. Can I join up and see if you guys teach me anything? And they'll be like, yeah, sure, man, come on.
If not like
a actual job interview. It was called EVE Academy.
Yeah, that one they just accept you no matter what. But you would have to like submit like a basic application.
Why?
That's just how EVE it's specifically because it's a newbie corp and it's teaching you how EVE Online works.
Oh.
Yeah.
That makes sense, actually. That actually makes a lot of sense, huh?
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. Let's not talk about EVE Online anymore.
Yeah. The point is, 2 Point Hospital, despite my dislike of my general dislike of management sims, I really like 2 Point Hospital a lot, and I'm starting to wrap my head around the concept of the designing and management simulation, so it might even get me into other ones, too. Okay. Which is cool. And that's it. Like, you could consider something like RimWorld a management sim, almost, right? So
I would consider that, but
I really, really like RimWorld. So it's not like I dislike the genre as a whole. I think it just needs very particular things to hit the buttons for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
also go ahead. Okay. So I also love 2 Point Hospital. I feel like if they iron out the bugs, it'd be perfect. Absolutely a wonderful management sim.
My hang-up with 2 Point Hospital is I just don't care about hospitals that much.
Right.
Like, thematically, it's just not a theme that is interesting to me.
Right.
But
even though it's like super crazy, fucking wacky, zany, like it really is not like a hospital.
I don't know. I'd rather do like 2 Point Restaurant or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just something about. I don't know. Something about the hospital is just like, I don't want to think about health and wellness.
Yeah, fair enough.
You
look at those guys walking in with their heads looking like a light bulb, and you're like, oh no, what if my head turns into a light bulb?
No, more like, keep whining, light bulb person.
They can't. They don't have a mouth.
Maybe they're better off with the light bulb head. Anyway, let's yeah, I don't know. Let's just jump into BoJack now, and we'll try to keep it under 2 hours. But if we go over, whatever, and we'll cut some news because there's really not much happening anyway.
Should we do a break before or after Boj?
I feel like BoJack is gonna go on for a very long time. Why don't we take like just 5? Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I never need the break, so it's always you guys who want the break.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
So how about 5:15? That's like 4
Sounds good.
minutes. Okay. We'll be back in a little bit.
Okay.
Talking to me, I'm a minute late.
All right, we're back. So I guess for the last half of our show, we'll talk about BoJack Horseman spoilers, and then do some gaming and movie news a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right. Okay, so I want to be clear. We are perfectly all right to talk about spoilers.
Yeah, we're talking about spoilers.
Spoilers.
So if anyone doesn't want spoilers, go away.
Okay. So here's the thing.
Okay.
It was kind of weird to me that Filbert season 2 took such a huge dive. I mean, I saw a work print. I heard there was a bunch of like, studio drama or something like with what time is it right now.com. But like, I don't know what happened. Did like a writer leave or something? Like, it went from like what seemed to be something that was kind of like talking shit about the basic cop genre to just being that anyway. Like, that was weird. Apparently, like, there was some sex allegations of Henry Sexbot, so I don't know what the deal with that is.
Henry Sexbot.
So, how did we feel about it generally?
Very good. I loved it.
Phenomenal. There's just really no other way to describe it.
I found it to be my least favorite season.
Really?
Of all of them.
That's surprising. Go on.
I thought its themes were all over the place, and kind of... I don't think that it was thought out as well as previous seasons. One of my biggest hangups with it was, and I think that this probably comes off of their reaction to the Weinstein stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the show, like from the very beginning, the show's kind of been about BoJack is not a good person, obviously.
Yeah.
He like the purpose of the show is never for him to be like redeemed as a character, right, or as a person. It was mostly about like it's not about whether or not you're a good person or a bad person. It's about what you do. So for the show to then kind of move the goalposts in the sense that really the kind of message of the show was if you're a bad person, you deserve to be a bad person. Like, you deserve for it to always like be bad. I don't know. Like, I thought Diane in particular was kind of all over the map. Like, I don't understand. Like when BoJack and Diane kind of were fighting about what BoJack had done in New Mexico. Like, BoJack was kind of right in that argument. Why does it matter to you? Why is this your thing? Like, why would you insert that, like, one of his most traumatic moments into lines of the show? Like, why would you do that to your friend? Right?
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, if the purpose of that was to show that Diane was a shitty person too, they should have talked about that. They had a whole episode with Diane in the beginning, and for it to kind of like play that straight almost and not even reflect on
that they had a fight.
Well, remember the thing that that actually started that was that BoJack said that was like, Diane, you're just as screwed up as me, and that's why she put it in there, basically proving him right.
But if again though, if that was the purpose, then they should have had her reflect on it. Like, what annoys me the most about this season is that basically all season BoJack was trying to be better. And even though he was trying to be better, not only did shitty things continue to happen to him, but nobody even acknowledged that he was even trying.
Right.
the closest anybody really came to it, giving him any acknowledgement for it was Princess Carolyn, who like very briefly they interacted this season, and it was to say, you know, if you're playing a character, just play the character and then take off your costume and be everyone's friend. And that was probably the best advice she had given anyone in like ages. Like, and that did really help BoJack for a while, but like, I don't know. It just seemed like.
But then that kind of looped back around in the last episode where or the second to last, I think.
Yeah.
Where the entire episode was him about just not understanding, not being able to function the two people separately.
Well, sure, but again, I feel like it wasn't really BoJack's fault again. Like, the show I don't know. The show up until this point had been about BoJack being a shitty person and the world kind of punishing him for it. And him like wanting to be better, but finding it difficult to even begin to be a better person. And now that he's like finally beginning to be a better person, like constantly, like through kind of no fault of his own, the universe just dictates that he has to continue to be miserable. And then they kind of layered on top of that, they have this kind of higher level theme of like people who are shitty don't deserve to be forgiven. And it seems like up until this season, the point was people do deserve to be forgiven because, you know, people do shitty things, but people can be better. And like for you personally, you have to focus on your own happiness. And then it like takes a real strong right turn, I think, at the beginning of the season where it decides that just kidding, the theme that we had been maintaining up until this point doesn't actually change anything, and if you've done shitty things in the past, you deserve to continue to like be haunted by them.
I feel
because you're a bad person.
I feel like BoJack was still like throughout this season still trying to grow, like still trying to dig himself out. It's like he's dug himself a hole, right? And he can't just fly out of that hole. He has to like dig his way out of it, clawing and screaming. And
but I feel like if that was the point, it should have been either him relapse, like having issues and kind of moving backwards, or moving forwards. Like instead, it just kind of like now he's a drug addict.
Well, yeah,
and it's
he was trying to get himself off the alcohol, right? Didn't work. He upped his alcohol intake after decreasing it or whatever, and so like at the start of the season he's kind of shitty and he's trying and it just doesn't work and he spirals backwards, right? Until he starts strangling that woman and he finally realizes, oh my god.
But at that point I don't know, because that's what's so frustrating about this. I feel like that they gave him too much cover for it not to be his fault. Like, when you're that fucking high on drugs, and you got to that point not really on his own, like, because, like, in the scenes where he was taking the painkillers for his back or whatever, it wasn't until Hollyhock threw away all of his pills that he got to that point. Because before then, he was just maintaining.
Right. He was
because up until that point he was following his doctor's directions. So it's just like I don't know. It's just
sort of. He kind of wasn't. Remember in the episode that sort of started that, the eulogy episode. He was talking about how he had to take 2 every morning and then just immediately took them and was just taking them whenever because he didn't even know what morning was because of all of the night shifts.
I thought the eulogy episode was after that.
No, it wasn't. It was in between the. It was right after the episode where he got.
Yeah, I remember that. He said he was supposed to take them every morning. I think he said at the beginning of that episode that he meant to take him that he was meant to take him every morning, and then later on in the series he said that he was supposed to take them every 3 hours. I think he said to Hollyhock. Which
I don't know, because it didn't feel like he was. I don't know. At that point, it didn't really feel like he was abusing them.
Oh yeah, well that was just sort of like the that was the like top of the downward slope.
Right.
But I don't know. It was like there was a definite line where before the Hollyhock episode, it was just a thing that happened. And then after that, it was now he's a substance abuser.
He needs
because by the time that he got more pills, he just took a fuck ton of them. And then from that point forward, he was just eating them like candy. So I don't know, like I just don't. I feel like they mix their messages too much. They're moving the goalposts on him. It feels like, especially Diane, like the way that Diane was behaving towards BoJack. It's like she kept on. It kept on putting her in a position of being like holier than thou. Like BoJack was kind of right. She is just as screwed up as he is. And then she not only was she just flat disagreeing with him, the show kind of goes out of its way to say no, Diane is a better person than BoJack. She's right when they're fighting, and then like at the end she's the bigger person because she takes him to rehab, and it's like I don't know.
I got a completely different idea, especially from the very like last couple of shots. In fact, it felt like it was more of a switch to BoJack is a terrible person to like Diane is a terrible person. Like Diane is the one with a bunch of problems that she needs to figure out, while BoJack is figuring his problems out. Like she was being introspective about that rather than that she got a victory from that. With like the last couple of shots with her in the car.
But I don't know though. Like I don't think the show does a good enough job of
like directly
making that point. Yeah, like because it felt like in a lot of ways what she was dealing with and her relation to BoJack in this season were very disconnected. Like if I don't know, it just feels like previous seasons have been so strong with their through line, all of the things built to like the same thing, and it all made sense thematically, whereas I just felt like the season was all over the place by comparison.
Like disconnected, right? Like the character motivations and stuff were disconnected.
Yeah,
because I kind of see what you're saying with Diane specifically. Like her whole issue that she's initially going through is that Mr. Peanut Butter and her got a divorce, right? And then it becomes Mr. Peanut Butter seeing somebody else. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm above that. Let me help Pickles out instead. And then, like, I don't know, like, she becomes a creative consultant on that show, and then she won't, like, nobody will give her any agency. And then it twists into this, oh, okay, well, actually, everything Diane is doing is about feminism. And then it's like, okay, no, actually, she's doing it to get back at BoJack, and it has nothing to do with that.
And then in the middle of it, she stops talking to BoJack because her therapist said so, I guess. I don't know. It's just, I think that I don't know. It feels like there were so many like good leftover questions at the end of last season, and they kind of dropped all of those threads. Like one of the reasons I was so excited for this season was I was hoping to see more Hollyhock, because they kind of set up that maybe she was going to UCLA. And then rather than having Hollyhock in it like at all, basically, they had one scene to acknowledge that she still exists, and then one episode where she pals around with BoJack. And it's like this season, it would have been so helpful to have that kind of relationship like there for BoJack.
Yeah.
But instead, they kind of just dropped that thread. I don't know. It's just...
The thing is, like, at the end of the first season, which was one of the reasons that I really don't feel the same way as you, is that at the end of the first season, because of the fact that it was the first time BoJack was happy, the beginning of the first season starts out with him coming back from, I think he went down to Southern California to his mom's house and sort of was when he came back was trying to make amends with everyone as best as he could, and everyone was still treating him really shitty. And this was sort of the continuation of his "I'm trying to be better" thing. And
I feel like
especially with the end of
BoJack
the
has
season,
always been trying to be better. He just
well, he's
doesn't
actually
know how
trying
to do
hard
it.
this time.
Well, he's
Remember, like,
actually being better. That's the difference.
Yeah.
This is the first time he's actually being better. The
Yeah.
other ones, he's always trying to be better, but he's
never
so
like
screwed up that
putting
he
in the
can't.
effort. Yeah.
And this is the first time he's actually being better, trying, or like being better to his friends and stuff. And it's just like all of his relationships are either disconnected from what he's dealing with. Like, I almost feel like this season would have just been better if it was about Diane and not about BoJack. Like,
Right.
because you could have had the same stuff with BoJack happening in the background, except for the final stuff with the drug things at the end. But like, you could have had most of the season just be about Diane dealing with Mr. Peanut Butter. And it's like at the end of the last season, this is another thread that I thought got dropped. They were like talking about divorce, and then they fast forward through it all. It's like by the time the season starts, they're already divorced. Like, it feels like this season just didn't have as much of a plan as previous ones. And especially after last season, where it had some of the best like metaphorical representations of things like inner thought process and stuff. And as well as like super heavy stuff with his mom. This season just didn't have anything like that. My favorite episode this season was the eulogy episode.
That was.
I think that the three of us agree on that.
Yeah. In fact, I would go so far as to say that was my favorite episode of the series.
I wouldn't, like, if you compare it to the flashback episode with BoJack's mom from last season. The amount of emotional weight that carried from last season compared to this season is like it's so mismatched. It's crazy.
I will say that it, especially like the second to last episode, which is always the big like showstopper episode. This one was not nearly
showstopper.
It was called that. This one was not nearly as big as the rest of them. Like, this one was definitely a lot less. But overall, what I thought about this season was that a lot of some of the problems that I had with like even especially like the last season were some of the like sidelines were really kind of
The B plots.
The B plots. Like there was Mr. Peanut Butter running for governor, which kind of was it was definitely like a reason for Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane to sort of move towards the breakup, but it seemed to focus more on the actual running for governor part. And then there was Todd's whole clown dentist thing, which lasted for like half of the season. And
honestly, up until this season, the previous season was my least favorite season because while it had some really strong stuff happening, I agree, all of the B plots were basically terrible. Right. And I even complained about that in that they had all of this B plot stuff in it, and I wanted more Hollyhock.
Yeah, right.
Last season.
That's even another thing. That's another thing that they just kind of drop, right? Like Todd's like, I am asexual and now I have an asexual girlfriend, and then they have one episode and they're like, okay, well,
and then they break up
because we have nothing in common.
Yeah,
and then you never fucking see that polywog again, the axolotl, whatever.
That's a running thing for the show is like just breakups and then you never see that character again. Which
I don't mind that. That's not what I mind. It's just that there was no story arc there. It's like they set up Todd to have a good story arc and then they dropped it, and I felt like that I don't know, it's just the transition between last season and this one was bad. Like, I don't think that the season as a whole, I don't it's my least favorite season. I don't think that it's necessarily a bad season. Like, there were good things in it. I just think, like, compared to the other seasons, it's just for me it wasn't as strong, and there were lots of places where I thought that they could have done better. I'm almost more negative on it because I didn't like how they resolved a lot of the stuff. I thought there was way more potential there than they
set up all these pins, and then they basically walked over to the other lane.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about like the Diane's divorce, I feel like the real lead up to the divorce was all of the stuff in season 4, which I do feel like wasn't done super well. And the more interesting stuff is the post divorce stuff. Like,
Yeah.
remember,
But they didn't really focus on that either. None of Diane's problems this season sprung, except for the one episode where she flew to Vietnam and then came back, and it was completely and 100% inconsequential.
all of her problems sprung from the divorce. That was the point.
What do you mean?
I mean, I kind of agree.
That was the reason she was like that.
I kind of agree with you a little bit, but I don't feel like they did a good job of expressing that.
Right.
Not even verbally, but of expressing that in general. Like, if you're gonna have a whole episode that's in Diane's head already, right? It would make sense to have, if that was the point, then it would have made sense for her to reflect on that later on in the season anyway, right?
Right.
Because there would have been time for that. They could have cut some other stuff and had her really reflect on how she's treating BoJack and how maybe she felt differently after the fight. Maybe she felt justified. We don't know. We have to kind of guess based on how we think she's acting, and I don't feel like they were super clear about where Diane is at with it.
My thing is she's kind of acted like that before the divorce too, except instead of taking all of her microaggressions out on BoJack, she just took them out on Mr. Peanut Butter because they were married and they spent the most time together. Now she's on a set with BoJack, and BoJack is kind of an asshole, even though he's trying not to be. He's an asshole sometimes, and so every time he's an asshole, she's like, okay, well, now I can be a dick too.
But I don't know, because Diane and BoJack have interacted a lot and have had a very strong and interesting dynamic in the past. So it's not like there's a lot of history between the two of them, and it felt like it felt more like maybe Diane because okay, they sort of alluded to maybe Diane wants to get with BoJack. In that one, there was one episode where they're kind of talking about it, and then BoJack gets spooked. He's like, and kind of backs off.
It was Diane who was super spooked. She was like, she basically goes over like a whole thing where it's like, we could make out, but no, God, no, I wouldn't, no.
That's not her being spooked. That was her leaving that idea out, and then when he didn't react the way she wanted to, she kind of covered it up. The only thing he said to
her was, "You're being really mean right now."
No, that was later.
I could have swore that was like immediately after.
No, I mean, "You're being really mean right now" was when they were in their apartment, or in her apartment. The time that I'm talking about is when she's over at his place. She's sort of putting it out there. It's so weird that we could just make out right now. And then BoJack wasn't going for it.
Yeah, BoJack kind of, no.
That was
remember.
totally
They were in their apartment. They were both kind of drunk. She's like, it's weird that we could just make out right now. And BoJack is like, yeah, that is really weird. Like, not exactly like that, obviously.
Anyway, like it feels like she was maybe reacting to feeling rebuffed by him. Because the next kind of thing that happens is she goes to therapy and they talk about it, and she doesn't want to talk to BoJack. She wants space from BoJack. So I don't know. It almost feels like Diane. This season was more about Diane and wanted BoJack to. I don't know. Maybe it was about her wanting him to replace Peanut Butter in a weird way, to be like her friend. She wanted BoJack to be her friend, I guess. But he was kind of not able to be her friend at that point because he was still dealing with his own shit.
Right. Which is why she tried so hard to get him to like talk about his mom and other.
Yeah, and then so she was trying to. Well, I don't know, the thing, him talking but not talking about his mom. I think that was his fault, obviously.
Yeah, that's true.
But
because he did want to talk about his mom.
It's hard to tell if he wanted to or not. Like, as a viewer, I'm not sure if he wanted to talk about his mom or not.
I think he wanted to, and then he didn't want to once he was on the spot. Like, he was like, he wanted to milk the fact that his mom died, kind of, and also, but, like, that was just his way of dealing with his mom being dead.
Yeah.
He wanted to milk the fact that she was dead so that she would give him one good thing at least, or something, but...
And I thought that was really well expressed in the eulogy episode.
Yeah. It was that... Like, that was one of those episodes. Like, I normally talk over TV shows or like laugh or make a comment on something that said that was one of those episodes that I was just dead fucking silent for.
Well, it was very dense. Like the amount of stuff, the amount of things going on in that episode there was a lot there.
It was, and it was great that they could make it that dense because it was literally just BoJack standing and talking to, well, nobody really.
Yeah.
One little note about that episode that I have that made me kind of not like it is I feel like they actually cheapened the entire episode with the gag at the end where he was in the long funeral home.
I thought so too. I would have preferred them to look back at the crowd and it be people he knows all looking horrified or something. I don't know.
Just like a completely empty, like completely empty except for the piano guy.
Or that too.
Yeah, I don't know.
Except for whoever he hired.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. I really wanted to like this season. It's just, the more that I thought about it, the more I felt like it wasn't crystallized the same way as previous seasons have been. Like, you really were clear about what the themes were, what was happening. And it's not as if the themes are just deeper here. It's just... the ones that are obvious are superficial, like the drug addiction stuff, and the ones that are like, if there's deeper themes there, are just muddled. So I don't know.
Right.
And I almost feel like the kind of reversing course on, if you did something so horrible, you can't really be forgiven for it. Like, almost felt like a reaction to the stuff with Weinstein, because like they didn't want him to think that it was okay for him to be like that or something. I don't know.
Used some other dude than Harvey Weinstein. Is that even a real guy, or did they just make a
Harvey Weinstein is
not Harvey Weinstein, the Vance McVanderquack or whoever the
that was a guy for like he was like a combination of a bunch of different guys.
Okay.
Yeah, he was kind of a
Harvey Weinstein guy was the sex bot.
Oh yeah.
Well, that was kind of a dumb situation in general.
Oh yeah.
I think that was one of those like fun Todd zany antics that affects everything else, but isn't like just this plot that goes nowhere. It was. I feel like it was better than the clown dentist thing.
I thought so too.
Didn't have any.
My issue with the clown dentist was that it actually affected nothing, whereas this definitely affected things indirectly in a funny way.
Exactly.
So I actually didn't mind most of Todd's plot. It's just I thought the beginning stuff was like, we had this thing to do, and then we just forgot about it. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but like it almost feels like they're following the same formula as at least the last season. It's been a while since I've watched the other three, but like
that's the thing though. Like, the previous seasons didn't have that much of a formula.
Right, but I mean, it feels like they're making a formula out of the previous season, right? Like, BoJack is now he's going to rehab. He's actually getting legitimate help.
But them leaning into a formula is not a good thing.
It's not. I wasn't saying it was a good thing.
I feel like it's had a formula since at least season 3.
But I remember specifically.
Oh, go on.
I remember specifically one of the things that pretty much all of us agreed on at the end of season 4 was BoJack is in a better place than he's ever been in the show, period. And now that he again is in a better place than he even was at the end of season 4, because he's getting legitimate help. So like, it's weird. And they even did the same thing with episode 11, where the whole thing was like a weird trippy kind of thing with somebody who is not mentally there.
But that just felt like another, I don't know. I just felt like the whole drug addiction thing was such a cheap place to go and a waste of time. honestly. Like,
It's not like
I don't know. Like, this show didn't have to talk about drug addiction. Like,
Well,
I mean,
here's my thought on it.
it always has. He went on a like 6-month-long bender with Sarah Lynn and got
I
her
know,
killed.
but it
yeah.
So like,
Yeah, and another thing is like he was using because of the fact that he was trying to do like cut down on alcohol. He was basically like unconsciously filling that need with the drugs because has like a hugely addictive personality.
yeah,
So
but
it
I
was
feel
just
like
another
you
thing
could
that
have
he
gotten
pushed into.
you could have gotten him to this point with rehab without doing what they did. Like, I don't
Right.
think that I think that focusing that much on drug addiction for this season was a waste of time. Not because they've dealt with drugs and how bad they are for BoJack and all of that.
and everybody.
Like drugs are bad. We get it. And
Right.
to have that be the central plot line for BoJack, it's like, really? Like, after everything that we've talked about in this show in terms of depression and anxiety and inner thought process and stuff, you're really gonna like bother with drug addiction? It just, I don't know.
I still feel like it's just like it's more of BoJack is trying as hard as he can but still falling flat on his face. If it's not something, then it's something else.
So it was like, it was like a prescription drug thing. So I'm thinking like in his mind he's like, oh well, the doctor gave these to me, and like it's different than the like coke and shit he was snorting with Sarah Lynn.
I mean, it's still abuse, though. Like, it's not.
Right, it's still
He
drug
knew
abuse,
that he was abused. I don't know. It's just, or if you wanted to talk about his alcoholism, we could have leaned into that too, because it was clear that he was upping his dose of alcohol too. Like, and that him self-managing wasn't working. Like, there were better ways of making it be the where he ends up, rehab, than making it about him choking a woman who he cared about on the set of a movie or a TV show. I don't know. It just...
Well, okay, maybe. So like, maybe they kind of wrote themselves into a corner there, because BoJack's been blackout drunk. He's been on year-long benders where he just where he just goes all over the country and doesn't remember any of it. So like they had to go with they had to do like something different. They were like, okay, what is going to be different for BoJack? We can't just have him get blackout drunk and strangle a person. He's been getting blackout drunk for 25 years.
Yeah, but if he got, even if he got blackout drunk and that was all it was, at this point in time, he's in a different place, so he would have been more willing to go to rehab, I think. That's the thing. Like, he didn't need a traumatic event to end up going to rehab. And it's like, yeah, it's good to have a big traumatic event because that is interesting for the show. But I just think that they should have gone with something else than it being about prescription drugs. I don't know.
Right.
That's just like a me thing, I guess. But I just...
I get it.
It feels like a waste of time because they've already talked a lot about drugs, so I don't know.
What it feels like to me is again like that you said he didn't need that to realize that he needed to get help. Like BoJack has always tried to self-manage and he can't, and this was like the final straw, realizing he cannot self-manage even though he tried really really hard, because there's been like a bunch of different times where he's like had that snap realization that I need to get better, and then he always tries to self-manage, and this time he tried like as hard as he possibly could to self-manage, and still tried as hard as he possibly could not to need anyone's help. And then like, yeah, I agree with you, but if that was the point, then they should have leaned into it harder, because it's like then it would have made sense for him to spiral out of control, not... And I even think that some of the stuff they were doing with him flashing back and forth between Filbert, like, was interesting. But, like, instead, they took it to where he hurt someone else in a way that he hadn't done before. Just to kind of make the point that he's still a bad person. Right.
And that's kind of my central hang-up, I guess. It's just, like, it felt like and maybe this is me misreading the themes of the show, I don't know, but it felt like the themes up until this point were saying something different than this season. So
then he's like,
well, like, I get what you're saying there, because like, I don't think you've ever misread the themes of the show. They even basically directly said it. I'm pretty sure Diane said it directly when they were arguing at the awards show. She was like, no, there is no good person or bad person. You do good things or bad things. It's just that you, BoJack, only do bad things. So people think you're a bad person.
and that was mirrored in the like last episode of the first season, where she talks about like, I don't feel like there is a deeper down. There's just.
But yeah, that's what I
things
mean.
that you do.
They had that deeper down conversation way back then.
Yeah.
And then it's like at this point where he's doing better things. It's like, yeah, he's not consistently better. He still has problems. He's still flawed and whatever. But it's like he didn't make up any ground. And for Diane to kind of it's not like Diane was kicking him while he was down. It was like he was kicking him as he was getting himself back up. Like
Yeah.
it felt like
But yeah, that is the thing. That was part of the thing. Like it was like you were saying when BoJack said, "Diane, you're just as screwed up as me." BoJack was right.
Yeah,
Diane was,
no, but
even though
BoJack
Diane like has different belief systems.
But again, I think the problem is if that was the theme, they should have leaned into that theme harder with Diane.
Right.
Instead, it was just like.
And she was the one who wanted to like sleep with Mr. Peanut Butter. She was the one who suggested it.
Sleep with Mr. Peanut Butter.
She was like, "Hey, you want to come inside?"
Yeah.
Make him cheat on his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Well, sure.
Quote unquote.
Yeah, but I think that's
what I'm saying is there were a bunch of threads that led down that. It wasn't like sort of entirely like out there stated, but it was definitely in there.
I don't think that. Look, we already know that we know that BoJack was right, and that like the problem is not that she was acting out of character or something. I don't know that you kind of get what I'm getting at, because I'm not saying that she my point was that they were I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought. It's
not that she acted as though like a different person. It's not like she was.
Oh yeah, no, and I don't think that. What I'm saying is that that the things that you were like the specific things that you say that it sort of didn't lean into, that it did, but very subtly.
I see where Saine is coming from, right? Because I like. It had her just kind of acting like a shitty person the whole season, but it didn't really like have her be introspective or reflect on that at all. There was never a moment where Diane like stood on the sidewalk and looked like, yeah, maybe I am a shitty person.
Well, it's not just. It's like
right?
It's like Diane. If the point was that Diane, I guess maybe it is just like they were just subtle about it, and it was frustrating to me because they didn't make their themes clear enough.
And they usually do is the other thing. Like it's not like it was just too subtle and artsy and it went over your head. It's that you know whenever there's a thing like
they're good at hammering home their points.
Yeah, they're good at hammering it in. Whereas with Diane, it was just like she was just kind of acting shittier and shittier the whole season.
Yeah, she was acting shitty, but it kind of wasn't even about her either.
Yeah,
like if
it was still about BoJack.
It was about BoJack, but she was being shitty. And if it was about her being shitty, then they should have talked more about her being shitty. And instead, it was a mixture of BoJack being BoJack and Diane being shitty, and them not coming together in a smooth way. So I don't know. Like, I do understand where you're coming from, Thel, because I agree that like there were stuff they did set some things up. Like, it wasn't as if it was just not there at all.
Out of
right?
nowhere.
Yeah, it's not nothing that happened was out of nowhere. Like, they did set
But
things
you're
up.
just saying it didn't it wasn't executed very well.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I think that was frustrating to me because they have been so good at executing these themes so perfectly up until this point.
Right.
That for them to fall flat like this, it just kills me.
Right. Exactly. One of the draws of the show is how good they are at perfectly tying together all the themes.
Yeah.
And making it clear, but not like Ferngully tier of in your face, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought the subplots were better this season too. I thought they wrapped into things better.
For sure.
That was
what
I really. Oh yeah.
I was just gonna say probably what you were gonna say, so go ahead.
Okay. So what I really I like the subplots a lot this season. One of the things that I really did like this season, and one of the things that really makes it sort of my favorite season, is because it played with framing devices constantly. There were like a multitude of different framing devices that were used, like that changed every episode.
Kind of used a different one, yeah. Like there was that one episode where the therapist and the HR manager were talking, and they were telling the story, but they were changing the names to be obviously the same people.
Yeah, the Bobo
the asshole zebra or whatever.
Yeah. With Prince Hand and the cloud of yearning.
The cloud of yearning and desire shaped like a woman.
Yeah.
Tangled yearning and desire shaped in the shape.
That's the one. Yeah, that was great. There was also all of the Filbert stuff where it was which sort of came to a head in the last episode. Mm-hmm. All of the Filbert stuff sort of reflecting on BoJack, which sort of led to what was probably one of your problems was that what you said is one of your problems was that even though BoJack is trying, he's still looked at as kind of shitty. Mm-hmm. But yeah. What was it? There was another one. The Halloween episode, which was also surprisingly really, really good.
Yeah, it flipped between 4 different points in time just constantly. And they didn't like just snap to it each time. It was like they had a natural end to the scene that was basically the same thing as the beginning of the next scene, where that particular episode kind of showed that Mr. Peanut Butter is just in this like cycle of doing the exact same thing.
And I kind of felt annoyed with how I wish they would have done better by Mr. Peanut Butter too, because I feel like they I don't know. He's like so close to actually growing as a character, but not quite there still.
I feel like
they even were like they revealed that his parents are actually dead.
Yeah.
And that was played as a joke, and I was like, come on.
Yeah.
That's not like a big hang up for me. It's just it felt like another thing.
Yeah, I can see that definitely.
That was like that particular thing was extra shitty for BoJack, because BoJack like wanted people to coddle him because his mom died, and then Mr. Peanut Butter was like, "Oh my god, my mom died 20 years ago," and everybody's like, "Oh, Mr. Peanut Butter." No.
Yeah, but that's been a running theme through the show is BoJack needs help. Everyone
goes to Mr. Peanut Butter,
because everyone likes Mr. Peanut Butter more. That's just how it is.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like they were kind of finally revealing that Mr. Peanut Butter had his flaws too, and they were starting to talk about it, and then they just don't, and then they just punish BoJack more. It was
I really liked the end of that Halloween episode, because that particular part was when that was like one of the very specific points that I think you were talking about when you said that he's this close to growing as a character. Diane was like, "You just have to grow up, Mr. Peanut Butter." Basically told him he has to grow up, and he was like, and he like thought about it, and that was one of those introspective moments that didn't need to be directly stated. You could see him considering maybe I should just grow up, and
they might make good on that next season. So I'm kind of like I'm fine with that just being open-ended, because with there's so much dumb shit that we've seen with Mr. Peanut Butter like running for governor. I feel like having him be a central character next season might be interesting. I wanted that this season though, and I felt like they had the opportunity to make Diane and Peanut Butter's relationship grow and move forward separately, and they kind of didn't.
Right.
Yeah. And this season definitely did feel like almost a buffer season for the next one.
Yeah, and it's
where,
weird.
Where like the last one almost felt like I still feel like the show could have probably ended on the last season, and I would have been fine with it, right?
I don't know.
BoJack is happy for the first time in his life, and it's like, okay, season's over. He's happy.
It's weird because I kind of felt like last season was a buffer season. There were definitely like big revelations last season. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I felt like they left so many open-ended threads at the last season that it was like, okay, the next season they're going to capitalize on all of these open threads they created, and then they didn't.
Yeah, instead of tying the threads together, they just kind of cut them all off one by one.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things we can probably expect maybe a little bit from season 6 is a lot more Hollyhock. Hopefully, based on part in the eulogy that sort of like one of the things that like I think we all love about the show is that it does a lot of things that come back around. And there was a part in the eulogy where they talked about the season 6 finale of Horsing Around, and how character went into rehab and then just relapsed and tried to get into their daughter's life.
Yeah, that was another thing. Well, that was another thing. They were talking about how there always has to be more show. So it was almost like a self-aware thing of them saying like we're running out of ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
And
and don't get me wrong, like the running out of ideas thing. A lot of it is we need to find ways to keep BoJack down. I do agree that they are kind of pretty hard doing that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like they don't have to. Like BoJack could be in a better place. Like he could have not been the issue this season. Like I think this,
like you were saying, it could have been Diane.
The show is big enough that it doesn't have to be about BoJack being sad. He's the titular character, but like the show is about all of the characters in it at this point.
Yeah.
Like
BoJack.
It could have been about Diane. And Diane's the central theme of this. BoJack's in the background being an asshole or something. And then like something at the end of this season sets up something crazy for BoJack next season, and it would have been fine. But I felt like instead they leaned back into BoJack being sad. So I don't know.
It's like
one of the things they did lean really hard on in this season that we haven't actually talked about like at all so far. They leaned really hard into Princess Carolyn stuff, and I was super happy about that because
that's true.
That was what I was really interested for this season.
She wound up adopting a baby, and Stuart Little was pissed.
I'm excited to see what happens with Untitled Princess Carolyn project. What is exactly what she's going to name the baby?
She was like, "Okay," but the birth mom was like, "You're not actually going to name it that," and then there was no response to that. Just
I feel like they did that just because they didn't want to bother writing a character name yet.
Fair enough,
maybe.
But based on some of the other names of the show, I would not be surprised if that baby's name for the rest of the show ends up being Untitled Princess Carolyn project.
What a long name.
Princess Carolyn for short.
or Untitled. Or Little P.
Little P.
Yeah, or Big P. I don't know.
Yeah, all right.
So I don't know. Like, with Princess Carolyn, I do like that they resolved a lot. I felt like with Princess Carolyn, that was the only thing that they played straight and actually resolved in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Like compared to a lot of the other threads that they kind of dropped or cut off, I felt like that one is actually something they actually elaborated on. It wasn't as connected as to other stuff that was happening as much as I feel like it might have, like it could have been possibly, but you know,
but it was the best like plot that was going through the show.
Yeah, it was the best subplot.
Yeah.
Of the last 2 seasons, I think. Of the last 2 seasons, I think it was the best subplot. Todd's I didn't mind either, but
yeah, surprisingly, like his sort of exploration of asexuality was nice, and Henry Sexbot wasn't nearly as bad as the last thing, as the clown dentists. Yeah. Maybe it's because like I feel like we're being held like hostage by clown dentists, but like compared to that, Henry Sexbot was not nearly as bad.
No, Henry Sexbot
I thought it was okay.
Actually,
I thought it was pretty
Henry Sexbot was good. I thought it was hilarious, and I thought, like I said before, that unlike the clown thing, which was like, oh no, the clowns came out and bit somebody. Now Todd met this. It like all Todd's antics were tied up in just Todd, which is okay, but Todd works better as a supporting character. Like the shit that Todd does should affect everybody else instead of
instead of just sort of existing and doing crazy antics.
And especially with the point that we're at now with Todd, like at the end of the season 3 finale where Todd and BoJack basically break up as friends, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then season 4 they talk a little bit and they say maybe we can hang out occasionally or something, or be in each other's orbit again.
Yeah. Todd's like, I don't feel super good about being totally friends with you, but
Yeah, but we can sort of be friends again. Friends, but I won't live on your couch anymore. And it seems like this season, it's gotten to the point where he's so far away from everyone else. Like, yes, it's true that Todd's antics tied into everything because he was working as an executive of that place. But, like, really, he only interacted with Princess Carolyn. He's
everything else it just kind of like spiraled down the line.
Yeah, he briefly talked to Mr. Peanut Butter. I don't think he ever talked to BoJack, but I'm not entirely sure about that.
He did. It was in the episode where he was it was like the second episode. Oh no, it was the first episode he talked to BoJack. It was because BoJack didn't want to do the naked scene. So the reason he became CEO is because BoJack was like, "Hey, you get a job as a janitor then you can save the show." Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I actually forgot about that. But yeah, so it just feels like they did. That's still a plot line that's hanging that they can still resolve, like his patching up a relationship or doing something with BoJack. But at this point, it's just like he's kind of living with Princess Carolyn and everything is fine in terms of that.
Yeah.
And then he's also doing things that happen to have widespread conflict throughout the show, which is just kind of funny.
But I think that's how Todd works best. Like how he's there, like he is straight up a comedy foil to everybody else, right? Like that's basically the reason that Todd exists.
Yeah, I just wish that they would rein him in a bit more,
and so that Aaron Paul can make the show and also be in the show.
I would just wish that they would rein him in a little bit more and reintegrate him more directly with the characters, because I feel like now it's like you said, he's works best as a supporting character, but it feels like
they're giving him a little bit too much.
Yeah, he's too much. Like, he either do something really interesting with him and like actually have a major plot line with him,
right?
Like I thought the asexual plot line was going to be,
or
wrap him up into another character's bullshit and have him be a complement to someone else doing stuff.
Right.
Todd,
right now it feels like
Carolina. I need you to help me adopt a baby.
Exactly. Instead he was just kind of like there too.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like I thought it was funny. I just felt like it did again just feel like a little bit wasted potential.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
We could have had like Todd going down to North Carolina and making a connection with the birth mother where Princess Carolyn couldn't, because she would always like fuck up and make North Carolina sound like the shithole she always thought it was.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, and this is a lot of complaining. I do really love the show, and I wouldn't be as frustrated if I liked the show any less than I do. Like, it is my favorite show I've probably ever watched, like, honestly.
Right.
And it means a lot to me personally because of a lot of the themes they go through. So that's why I'm so critical. I don't know.
And I can understand that.
And I think it's hard when you binge watch, like, all of a season in one sitting sometimes. I remember when I first started watching it, I started like when season 2 or 3 had just come out or something. And I watched all of them kind of straight through, but somehow when you're watching like a ton, it doesn't feel like I have to watch these 12 right now. It's just I could stop wherever and continue later. But this, I don't know. It's just, it's hard to do that, I think, especially when I have so many other things I'm juggling all at once.
Yeah.
So,
And like the thing is, like with this, I watched the show like twice in like 1 week. So well, this season twice in 1 week. So like like if I was like picking up on some stuff a lot more the second time too, especially.
Yeah, and that's actually in the past I have watched it multiple times because I like to watch my first watch through on my own typically. Then I'll usually watch it with Dalsson, but because I was sick this week and also
we really wanted to talk about it this week.
And I also didn't, I had negative feelings kind of coming out of it, and I didn't want to watch it with Dalsson and maybe like change his perspective on it before he saw it on his own.
Right.
Because I didn't like, I had negative thoughts and I didn't want it to bleed over into him because I wanted to see how he felt about it before I like talked about it. So so that's kind of why
even hearing you talk about it now, like it's making me go back and like reevaluate like the season as a whole, because I like, even though I was binge watching it just back to back, I kind of still took every episode as like its own individual thing, right? So like I hadn't really looked at it as a whole, but I see a lot of your points, like
and
like
maybe that is the
threads.
problem. Maybe I should be looking at it more individually rather than as like almost a 6-hour movie or whatever, or 5-hour movie.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just like,
and like the reason I'm like so positive is just because of the fact that like the side plots in this season weren't as like were much more inclusive and did slightly more interesting things than last season.
Ham-fisted. That was the word I've been looking for like ages.
like
the show is very good at tying its themes and almost directly stating them without being ham-fisted.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
So yeah, I guess just as a whole, I guess that's true. Just as a whole, I think it didn't execute as well, but individual episodes were really strong, and there were. I don't feel like they wasted any episodes the way I felt last season.
Right.
Like there was that whole episode where they were underground last season. You remember
that was like a real low point.
That episode is memorable to me because it was so unmemorable.
I remember that episode because they had Zach Braff in it, and that's it.
I remember that episode because I remember complaining about how that episode had so little to do with anything else, and I wanted more Hollyhock.
Remember that episode until you guys said it, and I didn't remember that Zach Braff was in that episode until you said it. So like, I don't remember anything about that one.
Yeah, that was and there was like the whole like. I know, and it sucks because like Princess Carolyn was great in that whole season, except for that one particular episode. That season had like the best Princess Carolyn episode, I would say. Like a girl from the future telling her story. That whole thing was great.
That was such an amazing framing device too.
But then it was like that episode where she like has a conversation with the ant people and that was this episode.
And like before the eulogy episode, I was if it wasn't for the eulogy episode, I should say, I felt like it wouldn't have any super strong individual episodes. And not saying any of the episodes were bad or anything. I'm saying like each season there's usually 1 or 2 episodes that really stand out, like the underwater episode or the episode that's like the flashback of BoJack's mother. Like they're episodes that like really stand out as being super memorable, and if it wasn't for the eulogy episode, like there really wasn't any outstanding ones.
Episode
I thought that that one was good,
okay,
but I thought that the
I didn't mind Bobo the zebra.
No, not Bobo the zebra. My showstopper, the second to last episode really is memorable for me specifically because my favorite thing that any movie or animation media anything can do is make this like dream sequence where it doesn't actually make any sense at all, but you can still follow it through. Like I just like really trippy dreamy shit like that, but not like trippy like bright colors and weird flashes
in a way.
Wait, where am I? Okay, no wait, I'm here. Yes, got it. Not here. where am I now?
In a way, I felt like part of my problem was it felt like a discount version of other episodes we had in the past. Like the drug trip episode in the past was like so much more memorable than that. Like,
yeah, there was another drug trip episode. Huh?
The last episode of the first season. Well, second to last episode of the first season.
The one that I was
a good person episode.
It's always the fucking second to last episode.
That's because the last episode has to resolve some shit. Usually,
it's always. No,
I mean, it's always the second to last episode that goes with that weird fucking drug trip because like in season 4 with BoJack's mom, it wasn't a drug trip. She was just actually mentally ill, but like to where her brain wasn't functioning properly at all. But it still had that kind of trippy dreamlike sequence of events, right?
Yeah. You know, and if they did have Hollyhock more in the season, they could have talked more about how she had anxiety about being over at BoJack's house.
Yeah.
They did kind of like brush over that for 3 seconds and throw that out the window.
I did kind of like that they talked about that. I just it just felt like
but they
there
didn't
should have been more of it. I don't know. It's just
I feel like to that end, I feel like they didn't talk about that to show that Hollyhock had anxiety or any issues stemming from BoJack's house. They talked about that exclusively and only to get her to throw BoJack's pills away, and that was it. That was the only reason, I feel.
I don't feel like that was. I don't feel like that was the only reason.
Yeah,
but I
would say that it was also specifically for that.
I thought it actually made a ton of sense.
Oh, absolutely did, but I feel like the only end that brought, because was in BoJack's house so briefly, and the rest of it was they were finding drugs.
Sure, but I don't feel like it was contrived though.
Yeah,
and I think that's the problem.
I completely agree.
I think usually when you run into stuff like that, when the only reason this happened is because of this, that like the problem with scenes like that is when it's contrived. Like things should move the plot along. It's just it's when it's contrived it feels bad.
Yeah, if you're just fucking like throwing darts at the wall, then it's like it doesn't fucking work. But like this is a very specific thing and a very specific reason for a very specific thing he's doing.
Right.
For a very specific purpose. Maybe the reason why they don't want to add Hollyhock and they keep on teasing me is because they just can't handle adding another character.
Maybe.
Because they're trying really desperately hard to like have all of their characters matter. When really like it almost makes sense if, you know, at times, characters were just basically written out of the show for a season.
There's 3 characters that I care about. It's BoJack, Princess Carolyn, and Mr. Peanut Butter. And Diane. So that's 4. So
those aren't even the same characters, I would have said. But, like, you know... Mr. Peanut Butter might as well have not been in this season. Almost.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the previous one...
It was important for Diane's plot, not for Mr. Peanut Butter.
Right. And really... If we're being honest, I felt like they could have got BoJack to the same place without him being a main character in this season.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. Like they need to. These are support characters. You can have this many main characters. That's not the problem. But you need to be good at moving them in and out of being main characters and supporting characters. And I feel like this season just really felt down with being able to balance that. And I feel like they need to like be less afraid of making characters not a big deal
for a little bit.
Yeah, like
specifically BoJack. I do agree that there was a little bit of like it could have focused on other characters.
Yeah.
I feel like it did do a lot of focusing on Princess Carolyn, which definitely like overshadowed a lot of stuff.
I feel like she was balanced the perfect because she didn't like her plotline didn't overstay its welcome, but it also didn't I don't know. It didn't feel like it didn't feel like
it wrapped
wasn't
itself
enough.
up and then opened up a new plot line of her taking care of a baby and
Right.
trying to balance her management thing. They've been teasing at that the whole time.
And I think that you know, Todd, while I would have preferred him being more wrapped up directly with another character, I do think that they had him for about as much time as they needed him to have. Like he could, like he could have, like that was like the perfect amount of time for Todd, like because they were focusing on other stuff. It's just like they need to be less afraid of making BoJack not the focus of his own show, because he doesn't need to be.
Yeah,
right.
So I don't know.
Or if they are having BoJack be specifically the focus, then just like have some of the other characters' plot lines die down for a little bit. Yeah. Take Mr. Peanut Butter out about it and just focus the whole season on Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter, or Diane and BoJack's conflict.
Yeah. Or make it about Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane's conflict. Like, instead, they had the side plot with Pickles, which, kind of grew Mr. Peanut Butter a little bit, and I kind of liked what they did with it, but I felt like that would have made more sense as a bigger subplot in another season, not right now. Right.
Well, it seems like they're still together, right? They didn't break up at the end of the season, did they? I don't remember.
Who?
I don't think they did. Mr. Peanut Butter and Pickles.
No, they're getting married now.
Right, that's right. Yeah, he was going. Yeah, I remember he was going to break up with her.
No, he was going to tell her that Diane was that he was cheating on her with Diane.
Right.
Yeah.
Which obviously would have led to them breaking up.
And then getting married now is like way worse. But
yeah.
Especially since I think they've barely known each other. Although they do get along better, I think.
Mr. Peanut Butter has very, very poor decision-making skills, and he always has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things just happen to work out for him despite his horrible choices.
But again, we're at the position, other than his 4 ex-wives.
Yeah.
But now we're in the position where it's like, well, is this a subplot that is going to go interesting places next season, or is this going to be a thread that they cut really early?
Yeah.
And just drop? Like, Before this season, I would have said absolutely they're going to take it in an interesting place, but now I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Right.
That being said, I really did like a lot of the stuff that happens. I don't know. I love BoJack.
That eulogy episode was straight up just BoJack standing at a podium talking for 20 straight minutes. They just gave the actor a speech, and he delivered a soliloquy, and it was wonderful. And that's
I thought the timing on it was so good too, because it's like it dipped when it was like it felt like even BoJack wasn't sure where he was going with things anymore.
Yeah.
And then kind of picked up again because he got into like a heavier thread again. But then it was able to dip down again and be like, now we're back in reality again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, everything like was very connected. There were a bunch of like different things. Like the title of the episode, you have the free churro, then you have like the ICU thing going on, and then like going back to the show, all of these like different threads that come up in really, really fun organic ways throughout the speech.
What's kind of interesting though, and this isn't something that I had thought about until just now. It felt really disconnected from everything else, though.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was so disconnected. It had nothing to do with his drug addiction and stuff, other than he kind of had a moment, but...
Yeah.
But that...
It was like a little moment there.
That's kind of... That's kind of what happened. Like, it's not like he was sitting there expecting his mom to die and writing a eulogy. He had to go do this. And it just happened. His mom died, and it happened, and that's what happens when somebody dies.
Well, sure.
So,
I get that.
Like, I don't think that was, like, necessarily the theme of the episode or the reason they placed it in the middle like that or anything, but, like, I think it works organically like that because it's just, like, he has so much shit going on, and his mom died, and now he's expected to deliver a eulogy, and he hates her. So. But
it's another instance where there's a whole episode unconnected to the theme again.
Right.
And it's just the theme of the season felt so rocky for me. And then that, like, while I love that episode, it is odd. Like,
I feel like it was a little bit connected to the theming, right? Because his whole speech was pretty clearly therapeutic for him, right? He's just like standing up there and talking about his mom for 20 minutes was very therapeutic. And then in the very next episode, they are suggesting over and over and over and over again that he go to therapy. The whole point is that he needs to get help. He can't help himself.
Although, again, that was another instance of Diane kind of being shitty.
Oh, yeah.
But
it's true.
I don't know, like...
I feel like it could have been positioned if, and I hate to like constantly be doing this, but like if the season was about BoJack's grief with his parents, talking about his mom and dad more, and that like if that was what the season was about, then this episode would have been perfect thematically. But instead, it was also about drug addiction, which is just like it really took me out of it. I don't know.
Right.
That being said, one of my favorite episodes of the series. I'm not gonna say it's my favorite, like Thel, I think did, but it's definitely up there.
Yeah.
So, and I totally understand why it could be your favorite episode of the season or the series, because it's like it was such a well delivered monologue. Like the writers had to have been sitting there for a while, writing
and
that
like,
dialogue.
What fucking show? Like it's.
Yeah, it's really
what
brave
fucking
to,
show would
to
do that? Yeah, like that was the word I wanted to say, but I was trying to find a different word. It's really, but like what fucking show is gonna write a full ass episode of just one character talking to the camera?
And then there was another episode where no one talked the whole season, the whole episode.
Yeah.
So like they're, in a way, I almost feel like they're trying too hard to do wacky things.
Yeah.
And that's dragging him down a little bit, or at least it did this season. I think other seasons when they've done it, it really worked. The underwater episode and stuff, like that was very tied into everything that was happening.
Yeah, and for the last episode, Stupid Piece of Shit was very tied into his whole thing with Hollyhock.
Right. God, I love that episode.
One thing I noticed is during his drug trip in the second to last episode, a lot of the things that he saw had the same art style as his little inner thoughts in Stupid Piece of Shit.
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah, like he was on like
statues and stuff.
Yeah, there were like statues, like he was remembering all the shitty things he had done, and they were like coming up at him like like actual like
I don't remember exactly,
they were drawn like that.
Yeah,
but I don't think that they. I don't know. I think it could have been a stronger callback. Because the whole thing was blue, if I remember.
Yeah, it was.
So I don't know.
It was the same art style, though.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess can't wait for next season. I don't know.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
I really can't. I really hope that they do kind of do a better job of stretching these plot threads instead of snipping them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wrapping
because like that is like all in all, I would say that you're right. They really did snip off a lot of the plot threads that they kind of tried to set up.
Yeah.
And then just followed one that was like weird to follow. Not hard or anything, just it just wasn't followed. Right.
Yeah, so I don't know. Plus it's a show about a lot of characters interacting, so they could have done a better job of making the characters interact, because they had a whole episode where Diane was by herself, a whole episode where BoJack was by himself, a whole episode where Todd was basically by himself, or his whole plotline he was basically by himself. They had an episode, Princess Carolyn's plotline was almost entirely by herself. So it's like, I don't know, they could have they've done a better job. Like, actually, last season, they did a really good job of having all of this stuff happening in a 72-hour window where they were crossing over constantly.
Right.
And seeing each other in the background, and like, they don't know why this thing just happened, and then later on they reveal, oh, this is why this thing just happened. And
yeah,
it's
in fact, I think one or multiple of the episodes, they had it where, like, one character would be doing something, they would be the focus, and then somebody would walk by in the background, and the camera would just pan over to them and follow them from then on, from that point.
And instead, it just felt like all these characters were disconnected.
Right.
And all... I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like BoJack, but this was my least favorite season, and I hope that...
Which is to say you didn't necessarily think it was flat out bad or anything, right? No, yeah.
I wouldn't say it was flat out bad, but
you just didn't.
I think they could have done a lot better.
Yeah, you just didn't like the execution of the stuff that it was doing.
Yeah.
Right. That said, if you like BoJack just for the humor, it's still there. It's right on the whole time, I think.
I don't know.
I don't know why
Not
you
enough
would like
puns.
BoJack.
There
just
weren't
for
enough
the
puns
humor.
this season.
There were not as many puns.
I think
but
they did a
did
better
do
job of having puns.
They did do that snappy alliteration thing. They did the thing where like all of the background, like in what's his face's stupid writer room, all of the background notes were hilarious.
Yeah.
Just all kinds of good gags and goofs like that, you know.
Yeah. I did like Chip as an introduction as a character because he was such a horrible fuck and I hated him. Also, Pickles was nice. I liked her too.
Pickles
The
was
whole
funny.
the whole stupid little plot line with the pops, the guys that write the jokes on the popsicle sticks. Those two were ridiculous.
Yeah.
I liked like every time
that was
one
a
of
good-
them
that
moved
was a good
around, it was
case
a sound
of-
effect.
That was a good example of something Princess Carolyn did,
Mhm.
unconnected to what BoJack was doing, affected what BoJack was doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And there wasn't enough of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
It was.
do we even
yeah.
want to talk about news at this point?
Well, let's look at what we've got.
We're already half an hour over. Is there anything
What
we
we
really
could
need
do
to
is
talk
we
about?
could like hold off the news until next time.
Let
Yeah,
me
we
see
could
it.
just
Yeah,
do that.
let's just look if there's anything that's like needs to be talked about.
I don't think so. Well, in movie news, definitely not.
Okay, well, we'll keep all that, and I think the only thing that we need to talk about is they're adding Isabel to Smash.
Isabel to Smash. Oh my
And
God,
they-
Isabel's gonna be in Smash. I hate Isabel. I hate her.
Did they give a release date on the new Animal Crossing, or did they just say it exists?
2019.
Okay, 2019.
Also, new Luigi's Mansion and some Katamari stuff.
Let It Die is
Yeah, Let It Die will be released on PC September 26th.
yeah.
Which is a lot closer than I thought it would be, so I'm
Um,
actually really hype about that.
I feel like we should mention it now because next week it would be coming out on the day that it went up to YouTube. So
Right, exactly.
okay. Yeah, so I guess that's it for us this week. BoJack and Spider-Man went on much longer than I mean, I guess I expected it to go on for a while, but I didn't really
expected
expect those
BoJack
to
to
both
go.
happen at the same time.
Right.
So, yeah. Thank you for joining us. Do we have anything coming up on YouTube?
I can think of.
I put out the hospital video recently.
It was really good too. Watch that. It's funny.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
What I'm probably going to do next is I might do a Hat in Time video.
That might be fun.
And then
That was a
after-
game that I wanted to play and never ended up picking up.
Yeah, same. And then I did. But yeah. After that, I know like the video after the next video, whatever it is going to be, it might be a Hat in Time video, it might not. I don't know. I'm still working it out. It's definitely going to be a Suspiria video. That's gonna be the first like I wanna do some stuff for Halloween, and that's gonna be the first thing I do for Halloween.
You know, I wish we lived local so that you could do something with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
There are
I
times
wish
we're
we lived
living in
local
different
so
parts
that I
of
could
the
come over to your house and play Spider-Man.
yeah,
Not
or
for
watch
YouTube
Netflix on a
reasons.
big TV all together.
Yeah.
You know what sucks? While I was
What's
watching
that?
BoJack, I have a Chromecast built-in TV, but it kept fucking up,
Oh,
and
no.
it would like lose connection, and then I couldn't reconnect. So I actually watched all of it on my TV except for the last episode, which I had to come into my bedroom and watch it on the computer instead. Because
Oh,
for
that
whatever
sucks.
reason, my phone just wouldn't reconnect to the TV again.
Weird. Okay.
And now it won't connect at all, and it's broken. So that's fun. TV works fine as a TV though.
Oh,
Well,
good.
that's good. That's what you need a TV for, really.
Yeah, except I never turn it on because I don't really play. I think the only thing hooked up to it is the Switch and my Steam Link. But I don't play a lot of games on my Steam Link, and I haven't played my Switch for months. So,
Same.
all right. Do you have any games you're streaming this week?
Probably gonna be pushing more of Delve in Path of Exile, and I believe there's something. Oh yeah, we're gonna do another Divinity stream on Thursday.
Yep.
That seemed to work out well. So we're gonna push on
Divinity 2 Classic because
Divinity
we're still
Original Sin 2 Classic.
continuing our old thing
That,
and
that
wandering
got
around
even
looking
more.
for enemies
That
to
got
fight.
even more confusing. Saying don't say Divinity 2 Classic because that is also
Divinity
a different
2
game.
Original Sin Divinity Original Sin 2 Classic.
There you go.
Yeah.
Whatever.
we're gonna be going with that on Thursday. Other than that, I'm probably gonna be pushing more of Delvin Path of Exile next week. I will say that I'm going to be streaming Let It Die because I will do that.
Well, not till next Wednesday.
Not until next Wednesday.
All right, that's it for us this week. We will see you guys next time, and remember, as always,
Stay beautiful.